I mean, it's right around the corner here. I know I keep telling you this, but here we are. Football season is right here. Teams reporting, getting your roster set up. Rent is due, right? By the way, we always appreciate each and every single one of you coming in here and jumping aboard with us, as you have so many other options, especially as you're getting ready for the upcoming season. And you have hung with us during this time as we're ramping up towards the football season. We thank you guys a lot, really. Please hit the like button. Always start the show off with Big Sills and another big show. Mark Farzetta is going to join us at 4:30. Xander will join us, as he always does, at 3:30. And you. What's going on, everyone? What's good, Big Sills? Shout out from North Carolina. Eduardo, that's a great neck of the woods, man. I love North Carolina. South Carolina, been down there before. My cousin lives in South Carolina. Played against the Tar Heels back in the day. Been to North Carolina a bunch of times, man. Great state. Absolutely great state. My dad did some work there. Love to see everybody from all over the country, not just Philadelphia, too. Please hit the like button. You guys are great. By the way, last month, look at Steve without football. Isn't that great, Steve? Right here, brother. Right? My father's from Fayetteville, North Carolina. Great barbecue there. Great barbecue sauce there. Great barbecue sauce. Hey, man, but I won't lie to you, Flexin. Best food in the country, though, man, is the Northeast. I'm sorry, I'm prejudiced. It's seafood, it's Italian food, cannolis, lobster, scungile, mussels, scallops, galamad. I mean, come on, me. And I'm not saying I don't like Cuban food or I don't like food like chicken fried steak and eggs. My wife turned me on to that when I moved to Texas and I met her out in Dallas. I'm good on that. I'd never eaten chicken fried steak and eggs. My wife told me, or then my girlfriend, she's like, try chicken fried steak and eggs. Then I went out west where my daughter was actually born. My daughter's an Angelinian, believe it or not. She's born in Los Angeles. And we had Roscoe's, waffles and chicken. We had that. World famous Roscoe's. So Big Sills will endeavor. We will try. Fireworks in the South. Good stuff. You like food, Sills. We know. Thank you, Prince. Thank you. Prince has been getting a little angst with me lately. Like politics and religion and holidays. Hey, you know what? I thought about it, Prince. I went back and I thought about that comment that I made about June 19th. It's not June 19th. I can't really stand them all. I don't really care. Outside of the military days, I mean, there's a 4th of July. We had another one. I wasn't meaning that towards any group or anything. I was just like, what are we going to add next? Okay. I mean, 4th of July to me, there's one national anthem. Good or bad. I don't know. I wasn't not taking a shot at anybody. And by the way, you're damn right, Bruce. My aunt said the same shit to me today. She's like, you're so right, Dan. Nobody comes to this program for my politics. They barely come here for my sports. And I'm with you on that. Okay? I really am, man. I hate politics involved in sports in a way, but you can't get around it any longer. You just can't. You can't get around it. There's politics in how we're going to pick the final 4 teams when it comes to the college football national title. That's politics. How you pick a all-pro team in many ways is politics. So many things are now involved in politics. But the one thing you have to love about sports, the greatest thing about sports that you can't do, folks? A Democrat, Republican, and independent, nobody can do. You know what they can't do? You can't change scoreboard. You can't change the scoreboard. In politics, you move the chains. In sports, you can't. You're not graded on a bell curve. It's win, lose. As my grandpa would say, there's no gray area. There's no gray area. I don't know about Memphis sucking. Memphis is a pretty cool city. Been there. Some great grub there. Been there, man. Whenever you talk politics, I don't even pay attention to you or mind you, Sills. Flexing. Okay, that's fair enough, dude. Nor do I. Hey, I'm with you. I don't pay attention to ESPN or any of that other shit. Hey, by the way, somebody asked me a question today, and JAKIB Ullman, who's the head of talent at Fox, asked me a question. If you would want one guy to take over for Skip Bayless once Skip leaves in a couple weeks from Undisputed. JAKIB Ullman follows me on Twitter. We've been friends a long time. He's the head of programming and talent at Fox and FS1. Who's the one guy you think I picked that I would want on Undisputed to take over for Bayless? Who's the one guy you think I told JAKIB? I said, you want to save Undisputed? Put this guy on. Who's the one guy? Not me. No, not me. Okay. LJ goes, yo, Sills, I'm going to try to be nice to you today. Let's see how long this lasts. That's the last post he'll post like that with a nice comment to Big Sills. But hey, LJ, one of the legendary posters here, and we welcome him. Shit, throw Shannon there just for out of spite. Guess who I said? I said put Charles Barkley in there. Put Barkley on Undisputed. You want to see those ratings go up? Put Barkley and Shaq on there. Put Barkley and Shaq on that Undisputed table. Put Ernie in there in the chair, too. Put Ernie, Shaq, and Barkley on that Undisputed. What do you think that show would look like? Okay, Sills, you are entitled to your opinion. You can speak your mind. I just hate the topics of politics because someone will always feel a certain way about it. That's right. I see both sides of that raising. Hey, Prince, you're right. If you have a political view on anything, be prepared to have that challenged at all times. You're dead on right, man. You are absolutely correct. Anytime that you have conviction in a take, do you know why people like LJ get on my shit and Prince and some of you other guys get on my shit? You know why? Because I have conviction in my takes. You may not like it. It's all in the delivery. It's all in the delivery. Certain guys don't get pissed off. LJ, perfect. Hey, man, I hate Trump, but he's a gangster. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Wait a minute. I got to do it. I got to do it. I got to do it. Sorry. You'll have to. Sorry. You think I could do my show like this? You think I could do my show like this? We're not ever going to deal with China ever again. We are never going to deal with China. It's China, Mr. President. Yeah, I know, China. No, not Regina. It's China. I'm going to do my show right here with this. How you doing? Big Cells. Wounded Ear. That's my new name. Wounded Ear. Holy shit. All right, man. Let's get into it. Please, guys, hit the like button. We appreciate it. We're going to get into the topics here. Senor, shut up. Okay, like I said. That was gay. It surely was. Yeah, I could do my show like that too now. I'm going to get up there in front of the RNC and I'm going to do my acceptance speech. Yeah, this is Big Cells. And I would really like to tell all Americans that this pen grazed my ear. I'm ready to roll. And I'm ready to rock. How you doing? That was gangster. Hey, I'm not ripping it. I'm just saying. In honor of President Trump, Big Sales is doing his show with an ear patch. 22 days until preseason. Eagles at Ravens. How you doing? All right. Hey, by the way, I had a chance to watch some more of that Hard Knocks, and I went back and watched the Hard Knocks. How is John Mara ever looking at Joe Schoen and Brian Dable and going, that's my coach and GM? That's my coach and GM. Brian Dable was making an absolutely scene about his quarterback room. What's his name Joe Schoen wanted to bring Tyrod Taylor back. And then Brian Dable starts crying and going, great. We got the same QB room as we did a year ago. Great. And I'm like, that's the reason you signed Drew Lock? Is because you didn't want to have the same quarterback room as you. Drew Lock, Tyrod Taylor. Does it matter? They're both bums. Oh, my God. He is a fool. Saquon Barkley, best thing ever happened to him was leaving the New York Giants. Dude, you know when Shady McCoy left the Eagles? It's one of the worst things that ever happened to him. And he hated it so much. He's a Philadelphia Eagle to his heart. He hated going to Buffalo. He hated it. Saquon Barkley, I guarantee you, it's almost going to resemble Peyton Manning in his affiliation now with the Broncos over the Colts. I got to tell you, Peyton Manning doesn't have a lot of love any longer for the Colts. He doesn't. He doesn't have a lot of love for them any longer. That guy, without a doubt, man, he looks at himself as a Bronco now. That thing is a clown. The New York Giants have to be the worst run organization, and that says a lot when you got a team in Arizona. Man, is that bad. Wow. I hated it when Chip dropped our whole offense. D-Jax, Macklin, Shady. F that guy. Agreed. Barkley was 95% of the Giants' offense. Giants let him go. They let him go for nothing. Okay? I'll say this to you, though. We're going to get into this here in a second here. We're going to go back in time, and we're going to go into where we are right now as we're 5 days or so out from training camp here. I just thought that Hard Knocks has not been friendly to the New York Giants. It's actually exposed the GM and head coach for being as undermining as they possibly can. No wonder Wink Martindale got into a fight with the head coach. Seals, where do you think Brandon Aiyuk is going? Greg, nowhere. He's going nowhere. As long as you have Brock Purdy on that contract where he makes less than $900,000, he's not going anywhere. Brandon Aiyuk can cry all he wants. They're not trading him. He's either going to play this year in San Francisco or he ain't playing. He has zero leverage. You don't want to play? Fine. You don't get paid. Plain and simple. The San Francisco 49ers are not going to deal him. They'll deal him in the offseason. They'll deal him in the offseason. But they're not dealing him now. Never happened. All right. I want to show you something before we get into the topics here. We agree that the AFC is better than the NFC by a lot, correct? We agree with that. Going into 2024, would you say the AFC is heads and heels above the AFC? Would you agree with that? Okay, right? Oh, I do. I think some of the best defenses are also over on the AFC side. Okay, I want to show you something here. Here are the top 10 quarterbacks in the AFC versus the top 10 quarterbacks Flexing goes by a lot? I don't know. Oh, I think by a ton. So let me show you something with the AFC quarterbacks versus the NFC quarterbacks going into this year. Obviously, Mahomes. You got, and by the way, I'm not ranking them. This is not a ranking. I'm just naming them. You got Mahomes. You got Burrow. You got Allen in Buffalo. Lamar in Baltimore. You got Stroud in Houston. You got Tua in Miami. You got Herbert in Los Angeles. You got Lawrence in Jacksonville. You got Rodgers in New York. You got Watson in Cleveland. And you got Wilson, and I put an 11th guy there, in Pittsburgh. Let's take a look at the NFC. You got Purdy in San Fran. Dak in Dallas. Goff in Detroit. Stafford in LA. Hurts in Philly. Again, this is not rankings. Mayfield in Tampa. Carr in New Orleans. Geno in Seattle. Cousins in Atlanta. Murray in Arizona. Those guys are mediocre on the NFC. Murray, can he get back to where he was 2 years ago? I don't know. Cousins is always going to be Kirk Cousins. He's a white guy, Dak Prescott. Geno Smith. Anytime Geno Smith is on the top 10 list, your top 10 list stinks. Derek Carr, too. Baker Mayfield, too. Jalen Hurts, will he be the guy he was 2022? Nobody really knows what they're going to look at with Hurts. I'm sick of that stuff. I want to bring up, let me tell you one thing. You know, it's funny, I was talking to Nick Casario. And I was talking to him about all the Eagles and all the prospects and all the projections that you guys have. You know what he said? Expectations never win games. You guys have a lot of expectations on your defensive young players. He said this, that never wins games. Never wins games. Expectations don't win games. I was like, I try telling people that. Yeah, you can go into a season with expectations. If you're going into the season with expectations, you're going to fall short of them. You always do. The key is going into seasons with certainties. I've been trying to tell you that. Expectations aren't going to win the Eagles a Super Bowl this year. Expectations looking better than most. That's not true. Your expectations are not looking better than most. What are you talking about? You don't know that. I don't know that. So once again, expectations are something that's a fantasy. Your hope, it's hope. Nothing wrong with that as a fan. It's hope. Expectations is a word in sports for the fan. But if you're a guy and a general manager, that's not a plan. And when you have as many as you do have on defense, that's why everyone's looking at the Eagles as being a wild card team and not a Super Bowl contending team. I was listening to the Birds 365. They had their guest on, and he was saying one thing that's very sure about Vic Fangio. Vic Fangio's fixes aren't year fixes. It takes about 2 years to get everything implemented. Now, I would disagree a little bit because he was a consultant 2 years ago, and they used that same style of system in 22. So they may be a little bit ahead of the curve than 2 years. But they were talking about it being 2 years from now that they're going to be good, and I happen to agree with that. If they keep their coordinators intact, offensively and defensively, the Eagles season's really next year. It's not this year. And you know what? One thing that's for sure. You're right. When we talk about just a 1-6 stretch down the season, let's talk about the whole season. Let's talk about the whole season as we get ready for the topics here. Okay? That's one of the weirdest years of all time. You went from the highest highs to the lowest lows. You think a team that has that kind of trajectory and goes like this all year long, that's a good year. So when you take what you did a year ago and you were all over the place like that, we'll see. We'll see. Expectations are for football, to be honest. Kansas City Chiefs are expected to repeat. Well, there's no uncertainty on their team. The only thing that they're worried about is injuries. They're not worried about coaching. They're not worried about defense. They're not worried about wide receivers. They're not worried about O-line. They may be worried a little about depth, but they're not worried about any of the things that you're worried about in Philadelphia. Will the corners play well? Will the quarterback play well? Will Barkley stay healthy? Will the secondary be good? Will the linebackers hold up? Will you get any pass rush? 23 is ancient history. Then why haven't you stopped talking about it as an organization? If it's so history, Steve, why haven't they stopped talking about it? They haven't gotten over it. They haven't. Let me before I get into the main topic here, let me throw this at you. Has Vic Fangio fixed the Eagles' defensive issues of 23? Or is this more on Howie? Has he fixed the issues going into training camp? Don't give me expectations. Has he fixed them? Yet to be seen. So we don't know. We're hoping. Okay? A coach can't fix bad players. Oh, okay. So it's Howie then. It's not Vic. Do we agree that the 2024 season is going to be on Howie Roseman's back and not Vic Fangio's back? Because here's what I say about Vic Fangio going into training camp. You're going to have a professional structured defense. It is going to be a structured defense that can win in this league and has won in this league. The problems are going to come down to it. By the way, here's where Howie's in the bullseye now. It's not coming down to coaching. You know all the heat that we give Jalen Hurts for the bad coaches, and some of you want to get, okay, well, get this. On this side of the ball, the defense, you got the best coaching you could possibly have that was available for you to have a guy come in and fix your football team. This is on Howie. If that overhyped CPA bookkeeper hasn't put the right players in place, the 24 defensive failures is on him. It's not on Vic. Vic Fangio knows what he's doing. The quality defensive coaches that they've brought in have all had, to me, they all have his fingerprints on it. This comes down to Howie. Did you hire the right backers? Devin White, the right guy. Why are you leaning on Nakobe Dean? You drafted a lot of young players in the secondary. Is Keely Ringo the guy? Is Isaiah Rodgers the guy? The reason that Bradbury's on the team, I found out, is because Vic wants him there. I asked Clint Hurt that. Why is Bradbury on the team? He goes, he's a good player. Had a down year. On a poor system, Vic's talked to him. What happened last year? He's like, Patricia was all over the place, and so was Desai. It was hard to communicate. Now, I'm not supposed to say all this. There were massive communication issues last year in Philadelphia with the players and the defensive coaches, including Sean Desai. Sean Desai was replaced because of the lack of communications. You know, Darius Slay and some of those players weren't even talking to him. Hassan Reddick had stopped talking to Sean Desai after week 6. He wouldn't have conversation with him because every time he dropped him back in coverage, the guy kept questioning, why are you doing that? Not letting me. That's one thing Gannon did. And Desai's answer was, well, because we're not as proficient as we were the year previous at stopping the run. And I told Clint Hurt that's not true. The first 6-7 weeks of the season, you were in the top 8 in stopping the run. That's not true. That was not true. Okay, that's not true. So, I mean, think about that. There was a lack of communication last year. You had players not talking to coaches. To be honest, I still don't know what Vic did a few years ago in SB Prep. McMullen's take made no sense. Well, he was on the offensive side, and he was helping out the offense with Shane Steichen on how to attack defenses. And if you think about it, the defense that they ran in 22 is probably going to be more of what you're going to see because there was more 5 in bear front. You know, if you go to the depth chart, and I got a depth chart from the Eagles last night, and Nakobe Dean, by the way, is still in the starting lineup. Your starting inside linebacker going into training camp is Nakobe Dean. For whatever reason, Dean is your starting inside linebacker heading into training camp. Once again, I mean, that makes absolutely no sense. You're going to put a guy in there in a starting lineup at the beginning of training camp to put reps on a guy who won't get through the first week of practice. Makes no sense. If you lose that Mike linebacker in the first week of training camp, your defense is set behind. Who's wearing the green dot? Devin White? Who's wearing the green dot this year? Who's wearing the green dot? Can you imagine that? French Fry Dean is your starting inside linebacker going into training camp. Good grief. So to me, I think Vic has fixed the problem. Now it's going to come down to player accountability. You're not going to be able to blame Vic Fangio if that defense finishes 25th and that thing doesn't look any better than it did a year ago, which I don't think it's going to. I don't think you're going to be any better. The only question will be is this: did you play your young guys? I don't mind sucking on defense if you play all the young guys, because eventually you got to play them. I'd rather be 25th with every single guy back there being young than having Bradbury and Slay play corner in your 25th. That makes no sense to me. What they should have did last year, as they saw that season imploding, they should have started rifling those younger players out more and more and more. Nolan Smith should have had a ton of reps. And if it cost you games, you weren't going anywhere anyway. You weren't going anywhere anyway. You weren't a Super Bowl team. You weren't going to catch lightning in a bottle all of a sudden. You knew exactly what you were. Okay? The players that have the best camps will be the starters. Titles before that are meaningless. LJ, I don't believe that that's how that organization operates. I believe that whoever is drafted higher and they put more equity in gets the looks and gets more looks. By the way, that's just not a Philadelphia Eagle thing. That is more of a NFL thing. Front offices are always going to give first, second, and third rounders the opportunity to make the club over free agents or UDFAs. Remember, front offices have jobs too. They're there to evaluate every single player that they possibly can to put on the roster. This is how we operate. a.k.a. Dean's rookie season. It's not true. Milton Williams should have been starting over Jordan Davis last year at the end of the year. Both Baldinger and I both said that. He was more productive and he was a better ball player last year. He ran out of gas. Wasn't in shape. I mean, like I said, you didn't do the things that it took to be a champion, Jordan Davis. And that's a problem that I have with you. Jordan Davis is one thing that I've told you about since he's come from Georgia to Philly. He does not do the things to be a champion. He's never lived up to his expectations when he was at Georgia. 9 sacks, 4 years, 3 years, whatever it was. With that kind of ability, that's not good enough. Being out of shape, you're a professional football player now. It's time to be in shape, kid. It's the least thing you can do. You don't have to be an athlete to be in shape. And for you not to be, you're weak-minded and you're not a professional. No other way to look at it. And the way I'm talking right now is how any decent coach would talk to him on an evaluation. Kid, you can't be in shape for us? Really? Well, then you don't want to play for us. Lamar goes, any possibility we trade Bradbury in training camp. Lamar, I keep saying this to you. Who's going to pick up a 12? This isn't the NBA when you're offloading contracts. Who's going to pick up a $12 million salary and then trade a draft pick away for it? For a guy who was one of the worst rated corners in the league last year. Who on the planet would do that when you know there's a great possibility they're going to cut him? And I could get him probably for around $3 or $4 million. Why would I pay 12 and give a draft pick up for that guy when they're going to cut him? Seals, do you think the Eagles have one linebacker that can play? It makes me nervous as how they just signed Devin White and all the fans think the possibility is fine, especially when Dean can't stay healthy. Here's the one thing too, Daniel, about, and LJ was right, just like every other NFL evaluator and every NFL team, Devin White at the beginning of the 2023 season was graded as one of the top interior linebackers in the NFL. By the end of the year, that guy's play and his evaluation, here again, goes down exactly what Carson Wentz was. Carson Wentz went from a $38 million a year player to a guy who was traded and been on 3 teams in the last 4 years. Players' performances dictate value. And at the beginning of last year, there's no doubt he asked the Buccaneers for $100 million. By the end of the year, a UDFA'd free agent linebacker, KT Britt, beat him out. And he signs for $3 million in Philadelphia. It was a $97 million evaluation haircut he took from the start of last year to the end of last year. Not a person on the planet wouldn't have tried to make a trade for a 26-year-old guy who ran a 4.40. And I agree with that. But then when you're starting to hear it's a discipline problem, and people like Bruce Arians are telling me he's a discipline problem on and off the field. This is why he lost his gig. This is why in the playoff, do you know that Devin White was a healthy inactive for the playoff game against the Eagles? What did Howie see in him that made him want to get a guy who the Bucs in the playoff game had inactive? You know what he saw in him? He was cheap. That's what he saw in him. Okay? Because he was cheap. Again, the economics of the offense play into the defense. Expectations do not win ball games. And once fans get over that, dude, the less expectations and the teams that make the less moves are the teams that are your stable teams. Let's take a look at this, for instance. Hey, is Niner All Day in here? How many moves have the 49ers made this offseason? Let's see. Aiyuk ain't going anywhere. How many moves have the Niners made? How many moves have the Lions made? How many moves have the Packers made? They got Josh Jacobs. Those are your three best teams. Those are your three best teams in the NFC. You know why? Coaching staffs are all intact. Roster's intact from a year ago. They added from the draft. There were no changes. 90% of your defense has been overturned. New coordinators, new halfback, new terminology. You're not in the same play. You're not in the same room. Like who? Hey, Prince, who significantly did the 49ers sign? Who? That's incorrect? Okay, who'd they sign? Or more importantly, who did they lose? Who? Oh, you look it up. Get back to me. Who did the Lions lose? Gardner Johnson? Well, he was only there 2 games anyway. I think the Niners lost Armstead, but they replaced him in the draft. Okay, Anthony Edo guard. Okay. Okay, so guard. You guys in the last 2 years have lost a guard and a center in that so-called fabulous O-line. Okay. Sure. OG. Who's Devondre Campbell? Who's Devondre Campbell? I don't know what position he plays. Is he a linebacker? Well, Greenlaw, they didn't lose Greenlaw. He had an injury from the Super Bowl. They didn't lose him. Former Pro Bowl linebacker from the Packers. Okay. So it was a linebacker. Okay. Malik Collins, who? Okay. Another guy they can win without. Leonard Floyd, who? Look at the names they're naming. Guys like you get rid of every year. Second team guys like Zach Bond and Kaiser White and all these other guys. What's the difference? Those guys, they're not getting rid of Warner or any of these guys, Hufanga and any of them guys. They're not getting rid of frontline guys. These are dudes that you get rid of every day. But they don't have wholesale changes in San Francisco like you do. You have wholesale changes every year with coordinators or what have you. How about Detroit, Green Bay? All those teams with limited moves. The teams that make the fewest moves in their coaching staff and in their roster at key positions. Those are the teams that are going to be in the hunt for the Super Bowl every year. Just, hey, once again, it's not just the fact that stability is in Kansas City with the quarterback position. Stability is on the defensive side of the ball, and stability is everywhere else on the football team because the organization is a well-run organization. They move off of people, and they know they have a quarterback that can throw them out of trouble. Their coordinators are not going anywhere. Man, how is Steve Spagnuolo not in line for another opportunity to become a head football coach? How is he not? We lost both coordinators after the Super Bowl. Big difference. Okay, I just said teams don't lose coordinators when you're talking about the contenders. When Brady was winning Super Bowls, you had Belichick as the D coordinator, Josh McDaniels for 15 years as the OC. You think there's any coincidence to that? Or Andy now with 9 years with Mahomes? Spags in there now 6 years? But you think you're going to take your coordinators and you're going to fix this thing overnight with Vic. The only thing that Vic has done, he's given you a structure where it's going to be a stable scheme. Okay? Former 49ers, Robert Saleh, D'Amico Ryan, Steve Wilkes, and now Nick Sorensen. And yet they've been to 2 straight NFC title games because their quarterback coach is Kyle Shanahan and their play caller. And John Lynch doesn't move the roster. They may lose those coordinators, but they don't lose personnel. You lose coordinators and personnel. Because you know why? You're on 1-year deals. Imagine that. The Eagles the last 3 years have been on 1-year deals on defense. And that's why you're in the position you're in. At best, you're a wild card team. Because of that structure. Because of that structure. Okay? Dallas chokes so often, they're trying to project. Hey, I'll tell you something about Dallas. If I were you, I wouldn't worry about Dallas Cowboys in the postseason. I'd worry about beating Dallas in the regular season, and you can't. You first have to start beating Dallas on a consistent basis in the regular season. Sure, Dallas chokes. Well, Dallas won a division last year. And Dallas has a quarterback who's 9-4 versus you. So you need to worry about the Cowboys. Do I think the Cowboys are a good team? I don't. I saw Vegas had a number with them with 7 wins. I think that's probably around right. I don't see it. I heard the guy on this morning with Birds 365. He thinks the Cowboys are going to win the division. There's people like that. And I'm not sure he's wrong. But they don't look like the same. He said they look like the same team to him. There's no Tyron Smith. You don't have Tony Pollard back there, who did give you 1,000 yards. You're going to kind of do it by committee a little bit, and you don't really have a 2-3 wideout. Again, I don't know. And how good is your defense going to be? Sure, you get Diggs back. You got Brand on the other side. I actually think that kid Bland is overrated, but we'll see. Okay, Cowboys not winning the division. Okay, Lamar, that's a great prediction. I happen to agree with you. Sills, the 49ers have been to the Super Bowl 3 times since 2020, but I've lost each time. What's the problem with that team? Because the coordinator on that team tells the quarterback where to throw the ball, and he doesn't empower the quarterback to play the game. Every quarterback that he has controlled. Andy Reid, when you watched him have that Super Bowl in the hands of Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid put the game in the hands of Patrick Mahomes. And that was the difference in that Super Bowl in the 5th quarter. And in late in that game, especially in the second half, was the way that Mahomes took control of the game himself. That wasn't Andy Reid's offense. That was Patrick Mahomes' offense. That there lies the difference between how a coach empowers his players. When Matthew Stafford was winning that Super Bowl with Sean McVay gave him the complete power. You know why he's still the quarterback in Los Angeles? Matthew Stafford, and considered one of the better signal callers in the game. And many people think he's the best signal caller in the NFC. You know why? He'll take control of the game. That game plan is his game plan. That's not Sean McVay's game plan. The great quarterbacks take the intel and make the game theirs. Jalen Hurts is so far removed from that. You guys keep saying, well, we'll have better play calling. Hey, fuck that. Better play calling? How about better decision-making, Jalen? If you don't like the play, audible out of it. Call a play that you like in that moment. You know, you guys keep saying that shit, and I laugh at you. The great quarterbacks are not going to line up and run a bad play. The inexperienced quarterbacks are going to line up and run a bad play. And that's what Hurts is. He's inexperienced. You can't tell me. You think Aaron Rodgers is going to come to the line of scrimmage, and he's going to look around and go, I'm going to run this play, even though I know it's not going to work. Never happened. You think Peyton Manning's going to come to the line of scrimmage, Tom Moore's going to call a play from the booth, and Peyton Manning's going to run that? Of course he's not. Even Ben Roethlisberger's not going to do that. The truly great quarterbacks aren't told where to go with the ball. They know where to go with it. Pre-snap. All of that. They take the intel that Andy Reid. Hey, remember what Andy Reid said after the Super Bowl? He goes, yeah, man, Pat must have changed up. He went RPO. We didn't even have some of that called. He just did it. When he got that 64 yards in the second half, running the ball, that was all Patrick. He audible out of it. And imagine working together with someone like that. You got Andy Reid and him, and those guys are going back and forth like that. And they're playing chess with Steve Wilkes and the Niners. And they're doing all that, and they come from behind and they win because those guys are empowered. You're not empowered in Philly. You're not empowered really in a lot of places. That's just not a Philly thing. Stills, if that's the case, would you pay Purdy $60 million? How about this, Prince? Let's ask this question. Hey, Prince, do you think Brock Purdy is Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0? Do you think he's Jimmy Garoppolo 2.0? Yeah, but here's the thing, Fly Eagle Maniac. You can win with Hurts a Super Bowl. You can win with golf. Okay? You don't have to have an elite quarterback to win. Okay? Game managers. Prince, right? Dan Hurricane came up doing that because he can't read defenses. So how is he going to switch to play? The way they're coaching him he's not going to switch. Sills, McVay or Shanahan? I'll have McVay. I'll take Sean McVay over Kyle Shanahan any day. Any day. He's more accomplished. He's won more. He's more creative. He saved Baker Mayfield's life. Baker Mayfield went to Sean McVay. He got that contract in Tampa because of some of the things that Sean was showing him that he was doing wrong. And now he's got a $100 million deal. Jalen ain't no game manager. He won his games last year on his own. Oh, he did? He won the games last year on his own. But how many times were we watching him throw to one guy? Because they were telling him to. Greg Cosell said it the other day. He can't read defenses. He's not very good in the pocket. Those are his words. Threw to two guys, which became predictable. And they stopped running. It's probably true. They did win 11 games because of the talent on the field. Hey, and get this. So Miami Buffalo, bro, we won us games. And get this. Let me just show you the difference right here in what he just said. You won games against Buffalo, Miami, and Kansas City, and you lose to teams like Arizona, New York, and Seattle with backup quarterbacks. How can you go from one end to the other? How can you go from one extreme to the other? You lose to Drew Lock and you beat Patrick Mahomes, or you lose to Zach Wilson. How's that possible? They were burned out, so they weren't in shape. Or are you saying, hey, Prince, I said it yesterday, and I'm going to stay consistent with it. I think the Eagles winning 11 games last year was remarkable, coming off a Super Bowl. I think it was remarkable. What did the Bucs do the following year? What did the Rams do the following year after Super Bowls? Okay. All right. LJ, what happened in the Buccaneer playoff game then? When the team couldn't score 9 points? And the team you killed earlier. What happened? When does a quarterback get an average level of reading defenses? Great question, senor. College or NFL? I know it depends on their coaches. It does. But Eagles suck at player development. That is not O-line. It's a great question, senor. Senor, do you think you have a better opportunity to be able to learn how to read defenses if you're under Lane Kiffin or if you're under Steve Sarkisian or you're under one of those type of offensive-minded coaches that he's going to teach you progressive reading? Or like say you get Bill O'Brien in Alabama or you get Sarkisian at Tuscaloosa. These guys who have been around Brady, have been around professional coaches. They teach you how to read defenses. I think it starts, and that's why a lot of players go to certain schools. You don't go to Alabama, you don't go to Ohio State to become a quarterback in the NFL. Stroud's the only guy that has ever weathered through that. It shows you how gifted he was. They fucked up on Joe Burrow. They told you Joe Burrow wasn't good enough at Ohio State. They said Burrow wasn't good enough for the style of play at Ohio State. What does that tell you? Poor evaluation and poor coaching. How do you miss on Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow goes to LSU and wins a national championship and a Heisman Trophy and has one of the greatest years of all time. How do you miss that? See, Jalen Hurts' problem became this. He ran a certain style. Alabama ran a certain style. And then they started getting out of that to read and spread offenses. Okay? And then they went to Tua. You know why they went to Tua? Tua reads defenses better. He throws the ball around and he knows how to utilize his weapons more. Hurts doesn't. And he hasn't. Even when he was in Oklahoma, they ran more of the read option stuff. He got to the NFL, they were doing the read option because Shane knew, hey, let's keep this simple. Let's let the guy skill. Shane's the only coach that didn't allow ego to get in the way of it being a coordinator. You know, I think that's really the key to being a great coordinator. Not looking for the next job, just worrying about the guy you have to coach. And I said this to Xander the other day. You know, if he didn't like the style of play that Jalen Hurts was in Philadelphia, and he had been around coaches and players that were dealing with people like Phillip Rivers, why would they draft Anthony Richardson? He was hired first, then they drafted him. That is his pick and his selection, along with Jim Irsay. He chose that style for a reason because he knows he can connect and he knows that he could be successful with it. He took a 51% completion percentage quarterback out of college. I mean, Xander and I are big on the SEC. And when I saw him play at Florida, I swear to you, I went, I don't know. He looks like a cheap man's version of Cam. He's got a lot of ability, it looks, but he never put it all together. I think he had one game against LSU he was great in. And the rest of them were kind of up and down. Billy Napier sucks as the Gator head coach, too. I never saw that. Sills, you think Stroud would have had the same impact if the Panthers had selected him? Absolutely no. It totally matters where you get drafted. Absolutely, Cosmo. Absolutely. Senor Gator hater, okay? Oh, hey, don't worry. You don't think it. I have a good laugh watching that Billy Napier guy. Here's my biggest fear. Please, God, I have one prayer. don't go and get Deion Sanders to be the Gator next head coach. Please. Every kid in the state of Florida will go to Gainesville. Please don't hire Deion Sanders in Gainesville. It's all I'm saying. Don't do that. He'll have every kid in the SEC wanting to go to Gainesville. Please, one prayer. Do not let Deion get that Gator gig. Sills, they approached the Buccaneer game with the same strategy as in the regular season. Nick, our great coach, game plan. Probably so. I don't think why they would think there's anything different. But what was the thing that you were seeing later in the year that you would have at least tried to accommodate for? You knew Todd Bowles was going to blitz more. Why didn't you prepare for that? The biggest problem, if that Brian Johnson or Nick Sirianni know how to sequence plays together, they were way too predictable. The quarterback can't read a defense. They tailored the offense to the quarterback's skill set. Don't you see it? Let me show you something here that played a factor in Jalen Hurts' lack of success a year ago. By the way, some of you, and I hear Xander and John McMullen say this. Well, he wasn't awful. Yeah, but he's not good enough. Did you imagine saying that? He wasn't awful. Well, he clearly wasn't good enough. And when I'm paying you $50 million, I can't just be good. I think you got to be better than good enough. Brock Purdy at $900,000 is good enough. I mean, where's that? Here it is. So here's what the Eagles have done the last 3 years. And this is all you need to know about what direction they're going to go this year in 2024. Jalen Hurts' first year yards per carry, 5.6. Can you imagine defending that? So let me get this right. You got a guy in a huddle who could throw the ball for 3,700 yards, gets 23 touchdowns, have 6 picks or 5 picks, and he's getting 5 yards a carry, almost 6 yards a carry. I can't defend that. I cannot defend that. I can't defend that. I've got to keep a guy home. The following year, his great year, 2022, 4.9 yards a carry. 5 yards a carry. At 3,700 yards, 24 touchdowns and 6 picks. He's averaging 5 yards a carry. Every 2 plays he runs the ball, he's getting you a first down with his wheels. Shit. Do you know what that does to the passing game? Them linebackers have to stay just like this. They can't cheat, drop deep. That middle zone's going to be wide open. You're going to have players open all over the field because I can't let that guy burn me on 3rd and long or 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5. Get this. So you're telling me every 3rd and 4, Hurts is picking it up. Every 3rd and 4, that guy's picking up the first down, either with his arm or his wheels. It's undefendable. 2023, 3.4 yards a carry. You went from 5.7 yards a carry, almost 6 yards a carry, to 3.7. A whole 3 yards difference per carry. I didn't have to worry about him running the ball. And there were less carries. You can't defend a guy when he throws the ball almost for $4,000 and has 5 yards of carry. Get this. So all you talk about is last. No. I'm talking about a trend. This is once again what LJ doesn't understand. This is a trend in how they're coaching him. 5.7 a carry, 4.7 a carry, 4.8 a carry, 3.4 a carry. It's going down every year. It's a trend. This is how they're coaching him. They're getting away from RPO, read option, more pocket. Can't read it. He struggles at it. The blitzing was the issue. And this is why this year's not going to be any different than a year ago. You got the same personnel outside of Barkley. You lose Kelsey. You're not upgraded really on that side of the ball. Don't kid yourself. You're thinking, well, the only difference between Brian Johnson is because he has 5 more years of play calling. Okay, that's a thing. But I don't know how much of a thing. Vic Fangio was down in Miami. He's been a coordinator for 35 years. They couldn't stand his ass. That doesn't necessarily mean just say, hey, you could get a first. How about this one? Jonathan Gannon never called the defense in his life. Didn't seem to affect him. He got a job in Arizona and came back up here and beat you. So when you say, well, Kellen Moore has more experience, Gannon did it. Gannon had never been a coordinator before. Had the number 2-3 defense in the NFL. Got the Arizona Cardinal job. And came up here with limited talent and beat you. And out-coached you. Eagles have $25 million in cap space for the upcoming 24 season. Actually, I think it's more 27.7. But only $6 million for the 25. I heard it's 9. Coming up for the 2025 season. I seriously hope y'all ain't dumb enough to put your let's see here. Was Gannon good because of that 22 group, or was that the main reason for success? I think a lot of things played into that season. Veterans, the schedule wasn't that hard. You really didn't play top flight quarterbacks that season. As a matter of fact, Flexion, let me ask you something here. Let's take a look at this. I think that 2022 roster you had was outstanding. Let me get to this. How good is this 2024 Eagles starting lineup? And I'm going to look back on the 22 starting lineup. Is this lineup better than 22? You think the 24 lineup is better than 22? Actually, LJ, I posted something on my Twitter page, and according to an NFL scout, $300 million of dead cap money is owed in between 25 and 26. So Howie's going to have to do a boatload of restructuring. So on the upcoming, the Eagles are the only team with $300 million in debt and dead cap money that is owed. So he'll be, again, in line to sit here and have to restructure contracts coming up. They're the only team in the NFL with over $300 million in dead cap money. So when he says that, bills are coming due. Your window is shrinking. So Anthony Kramer says right now the 2024 roster's better than the 22 roster. Just take a look at that. You think this version of Jalen Hurts is better than the 22 Jalen Hurts? 22 Jalen Hurts, 24 Jalen Hurts. Who would you take? Who would you take? 22 or 24 heading into this year? Who would you take? 22. Me too. Who would you take heading in to the 2024 season? Myles Garrett at 1,300 yards or Saquon Barkley coming off 900 yards? Would you take the 22 Miles Sanders or Barkley? By the way, Barkley don't have the same old line Sanders had. Miles Sanders had 1,300 yards rushing. LJ says, easy. Sanders flamed out in Carolina. Well, Barkley's coming off of 2 knee surgeries in 4 years. Let's just go Barkley. I'll play along here. (2022) AJ Brown, 2024 AJ Brown. What do you got? I'm trying to figure out what roster's better heading into training camp. AJ Brown, 22. AJ Brown, 24. Who you got? Same person? I don't think so. I think AJ Brown's better today than he was in 22. I actually think he's better today. So I'll take AJ Brown. (2022) Devontae Smith or 2024 Devontae Smith? Who you got? I'm looking for because you guys, some of you are saying you have a better roster right now than you did in 22 when you got to the Super Bowl. Smith, 24? Lamar says 22, Smitty. I think Devontae Smith's a better ball player today than he was in 22. I think he's better today. Look at that. Out of the first 4 selections, the only guy that you wouldn't take is the quarterback because the quarterback was spectacular in 22. Interesting. Barkley, Brown, and Devontae. Here's an interesting one. Who would you take? Quez Watkins or Paris Campbell? Who would you take? I actually think Quez Watkins. I don't know who Paris Campbell is. Then again, that wide receiver 3 position has been a dud. Has been a dud. I'm going to call that a push. Let's put push there. I think they both suck. Dallas Goedert, 22. Or Goddard heading into the 2024 season. I think Goddard 22 is better. We're looking at who has the better roster heading into training camp. Jordan Mailata, 22, or Jordan Mailata, 24? Mailata, 24. Dickerson, left guard, 22. This is shaping up pretty good here for you guys. Heading into this season. Left guard. I'd take Dickerson today. More experience, better ball player. Center, Kelsey or Juergens? It's too bad you have to go against one of the best players in the history of the position, but you got Kelsey here. Sayamalo. He wins that. 22, better right guard than Steen. And 22 Lane versus 24 Lane heading into camp. I'll take 22. Lane Johnson. So, on the offensive side, Hurts, Goddard, Kelsey, Sayamalo, and Lane were the advantages. Over on the other side, heading into this camp, Barkley, Brown, Smith, Mailata, Dickerson. Pretty even. It's all going to come down to the play of the quarterback, obviously. If Jalen Hurts, you pretty much have the same offense. Right? You pretty much, it's the same offense. Now, the question mark, again, it's hard because Miles did have 1,300 yards. You didn't know that heading into the 22 season, if the guy was going to put those kind of numbers up. It was a career year. So you didn't know. And you really don't know what Barkley's going to do this year because that's still kind of like the outlier. So let's take a look at the defense now. Brandon Graham, 22. Milton Williams, 24. Taking Brandon in 22. Fletcher Cox, Jordan Davis. Taking Fletcher Cox. Here's a pretty hard one. Javon Hargrave, Jalen Carter. Had 11 sacks that year. I'm still going to go Carter. I think he's a better run stopper. Hassan Reddick, Bryce Huff. Hassan Reddick. TJ Edwards, Nakobe Dean. TJ Edwards. Kaiser White, Devin White. I'll take Kaiser. Kaiser had 120 tackles. You haven't had a guy in your defense at linebacker with 120 tackles in 3 years. You haven't even been able to replace him. Darius Slay, 22. Versus Slay, 24. Slay, 22. Marcus Epps, 22. Reed Blankenship. Marcus Epps. Safety, Gardner Johnson, 22. Gardner Johnson, 24. I'll take the 22 one. Led the NFL in interceptions. Bradbury, 22. Pro Bowler. And Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith. No, Josh Sweat. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, 8, 9. They have the advantage 10 players on defense in 22 to your guy 1. And you still think you're a Super Bowl contending team when that was a Super Bowl contending team. And I even predicted that the Eagles will get to the Super Bowl because I thought it was one of the best rosters I've ever seen assembled in the offseason. My prediction was that they would make it to the Super Bowl and play the Bills because of what you had on that team and what you did. 24 is nowhere near that team. That's the best team that Jalen Hurts will ever play on. And Jalen Hurts is not even as good as he was 2 years ago yet. See, this is what LJ doesn't understand again. 22 and 23 are how Howie Roseman evaluates players and their production and their salaries on their roster because they're called trends. Here's how you evaluate teams and players. You evaluate a team on the last 3 games that you've played, plus common opponents, plus division opponents, and you put a game plan around what the deficiencies of those teams do. As a player, you look at his projection over the last 3 years, and then you make evaluations on do you think and projections on do you think that player will be good. Now, let me ask you something here. According to LJ, Howie Roseman did not use projection on Bryce Huff when Bryce Huff has only had 1 decent season in the National Football League. Was he not projecting and looking at what he had done in the past or maybe not had done in the past? He looked at every single thing and all the metrics and analytics and made a projection that he believes that guy's a $17 million guy. You don't do that based off of 1 season, do you? Because if you do, that's a fundamental flaw. And it's playing out a little bit here with Jalen. If you're paying people based off of 1 year, you got a problem in the building. You have a massive problem. Okay? Look at Jalen's numbers were better in 23 than 22. Only thing he needs to do is limit the turnovers. No, that's not all they were. In 23, they asked him to throw the ball more and hold on to the ball longer in the pocket, which he's not capable of doing. And the interceptions increased because they asked him to do something that he's not capable of, throwing more. Same as Lamar. You saw Lamar play out in the AFC title game. They asked him to throw more. He turned the ball over. That's not what he does. Your yards per carry have gone down every single season since 21 when he became a starter. They're morphing him into trying to be a pocket passer. The more they do that, the more he won't ever get to being what his potential will be. I'm sorry, man. That's how I see it. Until you can prove to me that guy is a pocket passer because they want him to be, he'll never be. I don't give a fuck how many Kellen Moores you bring in. It won't matter. Not yet. Can he get better? Yeah. Takes time, though. Takes time for Hey, if it takes time for a quarterback to read defenses, doesn't it take time for a coordinator to get accustomed to the player that he's coaching? Or do you think that's just like a seamless transition? Man. Okay. The NFC East is weaker division in 24. It's a good take, Paul. You're right. Washington rebuilding. I think they're going to be a good team. Giants may be among the worst teams in the league, and I agree. 2024, both the Cowboys and Eagles to a step back starting out for this season. I think the Cowboys clearly have taken a step back when it comes to their personnel. No doubt. 23 wasn't terrible passing rating, turnovers, accuracy, stuff you can't measure wasn't good as 22. It was just more balanced. The quarterback was just more of a balanced player for us in that 22 season. He was more of a balanced guy. No, like I said, you don't have a better team. As a matter of fact, every year since the 22 season, you've had a lesser football team. And you guys are only looking at one side of the ball. And you keep telling me, what was the comment that Nick Casario said? Expectations never win games. You can keep telling me about expectations and projections. Great. They don't win games. They just do not win games. 20 turnovers for Jalen Hurts in 23. He needs to commit 14 or less between INTs and fumbles, which he had 9 last season, with 5 lost to the opponent. So and then what does that do? By the way, here's another fundamental take that you have to put into this conversation here. How much is the defense going to hurt Jalen in the offense this year? Have you put that into consideration? What if they're consistently putting that football team in poor field position every game, where they're constantly being thrown on and run on and passed on until they can get their feet wet, until they understand what's going on? I think it's going to be a rocky road at the beginning of the year. You're playing against some pretty good quarterbacks. I'm hoping you're playing better by the mid part of the season again, like I hoped you were a year ago. Well, let me ask you this. How much do you believe the defense is going to hurt the offense this year? What would you say on a scale of 1 to 10? The defense got no, it didn't get reloaded. You got a bunch of players back there. Dude, reloaded? You mean you addressed it? Okay, you addressed it. I lost faith in Wentz when he revealed he was the issue. I have high hopes for Hurts because of the dedication to learn and self-improve. I think that's a great take. That takes time, though, Prince. It's not an overnight success. It's just not. Dude, and I'll say one more time to you. Sills, do you think that Jalen Hurts has talent? I do. Properly coached? Yeah. Like, let me ask you this. Would you take Tom Brady and run him in an RPO offense? Try to make him an RPO quarterback? Why would you try to make Jalen Hurts a drop-back passer like Brady? What, isn't it the same? What, isn't that the same concept? Would you ever take Peyton Manning and put him in an RPO offense? How does that make sense? Or would you take a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers and drop him in an RPO offense? You wouldn't coach him that way. I don't know why Philadelphia is so hard bent that their last 2 big money quarterbacks, they got injured, and they want to fundamentally coach him the same way because they think they know how to. Carson Wentz was not a pocket passer either, but you wanted him to be. Pat, 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 sack. Pat, 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 Hurts, blitz. You got better players on this team. So you're going to make more excuses. He has more excuses. Plus, he's a better guy to coach, it seems. I'm talking Jalen. Okay? So here, how much is that defense going to hurt the offense this year? When does it wear the offense out? If you're doing this and you get out of the gate, say against Green Bay, and you give up 450 yards in total offense versus Green Bay, and that's like a precursor to come, dude, you're in for a long fucking year. That is a long year. And get this, no matter how good the offense looks, watch this. If Jalen or if Jordan Love is starting to go down the field and he starts putting 6 or 7 10-play drives together, and you wear that defense out, and you're constantly doing this to your offense, 1st and 10 from the 20 up, or 1st and 10 from the 35 up, and that's where you're starting, and that's your field position. And the other team is, say you get a couple 3-and-outs. All of a sudden, the other team is starting to get better field position. They win the war on the clock, and they win field position with you early. That's going to be the key to watch for the Eagles season early. What type of field position are they giving up defensively? And are the Eagles burning the clock like they did in 22? Because if they do that, they're going to keep that defense and offense fresh. Now, here's the key. Do you run Barkley early? Or do you run him late? Because I don't think he can do both. I don't think he's set up to run for 300 or 256 carries. Here's what you should do. I think you should run Barkley as many times as you can into the offense, and the defense gets settled. Get those plays. Get those drives going. Wear teams out. Is it important to have him late? Absolutely. But he's not a bell cow back anymore. He's not going to be a 290 carry guy. So you don't have a bell cow guy. The thing that you had in 17 that you don't have now, you had a Dye and you had LeGarrette Blount. And those two guys wore you out. If you know who that guy is? That's Derrick Henry in one body. But the Eagles in 17 had 2 different dudes doing that. And they wore your ass out. One guy was 20-20. Did not LeGarrette Blount have a nose for the end zone from the 20 in? Dude, how many touchdowns did that dude score when he was in New England? Right? All right. Mark Farzetta is going to join us at 4:30. Our good friend now, Xander Krauss, the co-host of Birds 365, joins us now. We appreciate it. That was a great conversation you had this morning, brother.
Which one?
With your guest.
The first guest?
The guy was talking about the analytics of
the analytics. Yeah, it was good. I mean, look, I do understand the sentiment of this is football. It's not math. And that's where I think sometimes the analytics goes a little bit over the top, where it's like, sorry, I'm not projecting the Eagles are going to win 8 games next year because numbers. I'm looking at the talent. I'm looking at the football team. This is a game. It's a man's game. It's a physical game. There's a lot more that goes into it, but doesn't mean I don't think there's good room for the context and for the information. I thought it was pretty good though. Yeah.
To extend what you're saying, always remember, there's 31 other teams, too, that have to get through the war of attrition.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, you never know. Look at the Jets season, what happened to it last year. 4 minutes into the year, their season was over.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know, especially when we're talking with the injuries. All right. Xander, how much do you think the defense is going to hurt the offense this year, especially early?
How much is what? The defense going to hurt the offense?
Yeah.
I don't think too much. I think Vic will be better at weathering the storm a little bit more so than they were last year to switch it up in certain moments when needed. They definitely got to get off the field. I mean, they definitely have to do their part though. Last year they didn't do their part. You heard the analytics guy, talking about how bad the defense was in DVOA, which was that advanced analytical stat that he was using. That guy was the creator of that stat, so maybe he's a little bit biased toward it. It is a good metric, though, and it did show that the defense last year was a lot worse than the offense compared to how much they dropped from 2022, which was interesting. But look, defense has to do their job. They got to play. They're all going to have to play well. I mean, I know there's a lot of projection on that, but if we want to go far, we need them all to step up. And, like I said, we've talked about it. They got to get going in December. They got to get going late November. We don't need them to come out of the gate as the best defense in the league, but they have to look competent. They have to find their footing. They have to communicate, and they have to, really get in rhythm by the time we get late in the year.
You think Vic has fixed the Eagles' defensive issues from 23?
No.
See, to me, is going to come down to Howie.
Well, look, Howie did.
If the right players are in the right place, because Vic's going to give you a competent scheme, Xander. It's going to be a competent scheme, and your guy even said it. Fangio is known. It's an 18-month fix. It's not just an overnight fix. This is not going to look like gangrene.
Well, yeah, and they also didn't address it the same way they addressed their offense in terms of Saquon and A.J. Brown. Now, really, I mean, the offense they had more time, but you sign a free agent like A.J. Brown. It catapults your offense. They invested a lot of draft picks. So you got to give them a little bit more time than if you went out and you traded for Brian Burns and you went out and signed a L'Jarius Sneed. Oh, it's a different conversation. So the defense is a little bit more behind. But look, I think Howie has invested the assets. He got the draft picks. There was reasoning and logic to every pick he made. Now, it might not pan out, but there's not like he made a Jalen Reagor pick where you're like, why the hell did you overthink that? So if let's see if they pan out. I think he's done his job. Now it's going to be on the coaches to get it out of them. But my concern is that none of them are game ready yet. None of them are proven players. So it's definitely going to take a second for sure.
I went back and I kind of changed up because I kind of broached this a little bit about a week or 2 weeks ago when we were looking at that 23 roster and I was looking at the 24 roster. Compare this roster going into right now, in your opinion, going into training camp versus that roster going into training camp in 22. You think you got a better ball team now than you did then?
I think you have a better offense. I don't think you have a better defense. And the only reason the offense is better is because I think most of them are more mature. You're a couple years further down the line for guys who are, slightly before their prime. I think A.J. Brown's a better player now. I think Devontae Smith's a better player now. Jalen Hurts should be a better player now. Haven't seen it, but based on the progression of his career, you would expect him to make some sort of a bounce back here where he's gotten better. The offensive line, Landon Dickerson and Jordan Mailata, they've gotten better. Now you've gotten significantly worse in the middle of your O-line with the right guard and the center position.
And older at right tackle.
Better at running back, maybe a little worse at tight end. You could argue Dallas Goedert was probably a better player a couple years ago than he will be this year, but I don't think he's out of his prime.
Nope.
Maybe he could be the same guy. Offensively, I think you're right there. I think you're comparable with the team that took you to the Super Bowl. Defensively, I think is a different scenario. You had TJ Edwards and Kaiser White both played better than they were supposed to play, which was a big crutch for our defense that year. Fletcher Cox was putting up big numbers. Now, you didn't have Jalen Carter at the time, but you were getting a lot of production out of that defensive front. You had Javon Hargrave, who was a big loss. Now both those DTs are gone. You had Hassan Reddick, who was obviously ripping the league that year. That was probably his best year as a pro in 22, career year. BJ was 2 years younger. Yeah, I would say defense is a little bit worse. I mean, Darius Slay was 2 years younger. James Bradbury played like a Pro Bowl player. CJ Gardner-Johnson, I think he was there, right? Yeah, he was there that year.
Yeah, he had six. He had led the NFL.
Right. And he came back for the playoffs. He got hurt at the end of the year, but he was back for the Super Bowl. So I think your defense got worse, and that's going to be the big question mark going into the year.
You had 281 tackles between White and with Edwards that 22 year. That has not been even addressed or hasn't been even dealt with in the last 2 years. So clearly, in my opinion, you had more of a balanced team in 22 than you did in 24 going in. Is that fair to say? There's more balance.
Yeah, there's more balance, but that's not everything you need is balance. So, well, but look, it'll be interesting. The one thing I will say about this defense compared to 22, I think there's more upside. That doesn't mean they're going to realize that upside or ever get to that upside, but I do think it exists. I think they have better, younger players, more talent across the roster. Whether they pan out is up to each individual player and the coaches that are coaching them. But, you didn't have Sills back then. We didn't have young guys that you could look at like this. Even the defensive tackles. Javon Hargrave was 28, 29 years old. You knew he was going to be gone soon. Fletcher Cox is on the other side of 30. Now you have Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, who are both sub 25 and could be, perennial Pro Bowl type of players. So we're going to see. I think there's more upside on the defense this year.
And Xander, everything you're saying is right, but I hate that because just like Nick Caserio's talking to him the other night, expectations don't win games.
Yeah.
If you've got all these expectations or all these projections, that doesn't win you ball games.
Yeah, but
guys that you're more comfortable and confident in that can do their job is how you win ball games. When you look, like you said, Quinyon Mitchell, Nolan Smith, Devin White, Nakobe Dean, Bryce Huff, Reed Blankenship, will Gardner Johnson be healthy? Is Slade too old? Avante Maddox, will he be healthy? These are all
but still fixing that problem.
These are all expectations.
Fixing that problem, though, because I agree with what you're saying, but that's part of the complexity of building a winning team in the NFL. You can't expedite draft picks.
But they do this there's too much turnover every year to be stability-wise and continuity on your defense.
Sills, we were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. That was an older
and you
defense.
know what? In 2017, you were in the Super Bowl, and 3 years later, you had a 4-win team.
Yeah, but the defense right now isn't fixed with Band-Aids. It's fixed with long-term potential players that Howie spent draft capital on. That's my point. I agree with you. There's a waiting game. I agree with you. Hope is not a strategy. I agree with you. Expectations don't win you ball games. But when you draft players, there's time. It takes time. That's part of juggling free agents and draft picks and, trades and all those things. Howie's been pretty good at it. He's been better at it on offense than he has been on defense. But you got to give him some time. Look, the defense, I think, looks good for losing a majority of that 2022 defense. I think we're in a pretty decent spot to turn it around. You're right. It's not turned around yet, but that's because it's going to take time, man. I think it's going to take time.
Here again, Jeff Kerr said it on your show. You can't, and the Eagles will never have wide open windows for Super Bowls because it's not sustainable on how they build their defense in some of these 1-year contracts. That's Jeff Kerr saying that. He said that on your program, that he doesn't believe that you're going to be year in and year out a Super Bowl contending team, because to me, the 22 team has far better balance. And I do think you have to have you don't have to be the best defense in the league, but you can't be the worst and have the best. You can't be 31st in defense and 8th in offense. If you're 15th in defense or 11th in defense and you're 4th in offense, you can win a Super Bowl with that.
Yeah, I understand, but isn't how they've addressed the defense addressing that problem?
Yes.
They did, outside of the linebacker position, Jalen Carter is under contract for the next 4 years. Jordan Davis is under contract for the next 3 years at least. You have 3 young linebacker or cornerbacks who are at the back end of your roster. CJ Gardner-Johnson, 3-year deal. Reed Blankenship here for another 2 years. Bryce Huff, 3 years. Nolan Smith here for another 3 years. I'm just saying, they're not all proven. I understand that. But they are going to now have that opportunity. It was a little bit of a turnover on defense. It was. That's what's happened in the last couple years, and it's a couple years behind the offense. The offense really started turning, remember, when they drafted Jalen Hurts, and then they drafted Devontae Smith, and then they traded for A.J. Brown. The offensive line has been good, but there's also been some turnover there that's worked out. Landon Dickerson, Jordan Mailata stepped up. He won the job from Andre Dillard not that long ago. It seems like an eternity ago, but it wasn't that long ago.
Hard to believe he did.
Hard to believe.
He was battling him.
So, look, you got to give that's what you could argue. See, Bob Brown, right on point, as always.
Always again.
But look, this is exactly what I'm thinking, and it's my fear as we enter the year. Not that we're going to suck. Not that we're going to not live up to expectations, but that 2024 is going to be more about growing pains on defense than it is about being a competent defense. That's why I've said it on shows, and people are like, don't go there yet. 2025, the Eagles look like they're going to be phenomenal.
I completely agree with that.
Obviously, we can't skip ahead. I'm not going to dismiss the 24 season, but when you point out some of the guys that are under contract, and if they continue to develop and improve the way they have so far, and you obviously hope you have that with the youngsters at corner
and the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, 2025 looks like it's going to be the year. But look, I hope it doesn't mean I think I'm writing off 24. I'm not writing it off. I'm just saying you are right. When you lay out the problems with the defense, you're correct. But it's not, I wouldn't say they've done it fundamentally wrong. You could argue at the linebacker position they have because they continue to put Band-Aids on it. Now with Devin White. Now, they did invest a third-round pick. It wasn't the right pick, it appears, so far. I mean, let's see if Nakobe can do anything.
I don't mind you taking swings, though.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, but you don't want to become the team that you'll rely on free agents every single year because those are the teams that suck the most.
That's right.
You know? So I don't have a problem with the way they fundamentally rebuilt this defense so far.
What do you make of these numbers here? This goes into what we kind of talked about a little bit yesterday with Jalen Hurts. I went back and did some homework on it. In 2021, Jalen Hurts had a 5.7 yards per carry average when he ran the football. Every time he touched the ball, he's almost getting 6 yards a carry.
Yeah, it's tremendous.
In 22, when he had that year where he only had 6 picks, he had 23 touchdowns, 3,700 yards, almost 800 yards rushing. He ran the ball for 4.9 yards, 5 yards a carry. Do you understand? Every time you touch the ball twice, you're getting first downs. That's undefendable.
Yeah, no, I get it.
2023, that number went to 3.4. So this is a trend in how they're coaching him. They're getting him away. They went from 5.7 to basically 4.7 to 3.4. They're consistently bringing him down in them RPOs and
I don't know if it was them last year, man. You saw a lot of times Jalen Hurts like. Well,
this is 3 years in a row. These numbers have gone down. I mean, there's a reason,
right? But my point is, you know, you've seen Jalen Hurts take some of those stuff into his own hands too. Last year, you never saw him in 22 kneel behind the line of scrimmage ever, because he always thought he had a fighting chance no matter who was trying to tackle him, to get an extra yard, to get the extra move, to make that one extra cut. Last year, he was going down. Look, I don't have a problem with it, but that's the reality of what happened. You know, and you had a point that you said earlier before I was on the show that I want to bring back up, you know, and you said, would you ever put Tom Brady in an RPO scheme? And I was thinking about that, and I'm like, well, yeah, obviously wouldn't, but what's the difference? The difference is that every quarterback who plays in the NFL has to have passing ability.
Correct.
Not every quarterback who plays in the NFL has to have running ability. So my point is, Tom Brady would never have to do the RPO because he can win with his style.
Well, then you're agreeing with me that Hurts is just not a good passer.
He's not good enough yet. If they're going to remove the run game, right, which we don't know if they're going to, but to your point, that's the direction it seems to be going.
Yep.
If they're going to remove that, the only way for us to win or for Jalen Hurts to be an MVP caliber quarterback is to be better at what Brady did. It's not the inverse. You know, Brady never had to do what Jalen had to do. Just like Patrick Mahomes.
That's a longer putt in development then. Be prepared.
I'm aware of that. I think, look.
There's more turnovers too. There's more turnovers to come.
Yeah, but Jalen wasn't a bad passer. When he passed the ball in 22, he wasn't bad. He just did it less because he ran more.
But there were less explosion plays because you know why?
Well,
he was explosion in when he was averaging almost 6 yards a carry. Dude, when you got a quarterback and I'm a linebacker and I know that guy's getting 5.5 yards a carry, I'm not leaving my post and cheating back there because that guy takes off. That's on my ass and why he picked that up. If Jalen Hurts is not going to take off and they're not running him, I'm going to cheat, get back in my drops. That's why the middle of the field was all blocked off after Goddard got hurt. They had nowhere else to go. They turned him into a limited guy. And once again, like Greg Cosell says, this is not what this kid does well. What that kid does well is with his feet first and his legs second. When you got a guy running the ball 6 yards of carry, Xander, that opens up passing lanes because you know why? Those backers can't drop deep enough to get those guys coming across the middle and them slants.
They're worried about you taking the 6 yards.
They're worried about you taking off like you just said. Absolutely. But when you got me sitting back there and you're coaching me like Carson Wentz, tap, 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 blitz, sack, bro, you're kind of slowing the process. You're trying to skip levels of development for the guy. It just, I mean, I don't know, man. I mean, you know, you said something too. Kellen Moore, the only difference in Kellen Moore between Kellen Moore and Brian Johnson is this. You have 5 more years of play calling. Now, is that a lot? Yeah, it totally is. Plus, he played the position at a high level. No doubt about it. I get it. However, if that's going to change that guy into being what they want him to be in a pocket, I think you got another year. Like you said, 25 is where he's going to be. If you keep that coordinator intact, that's where you're going to see the best Jalen Hurts is next year. You're going to see a bumpy ride, man. And I agree with your guy that was on also above Barkley. Barkley moving the needle, I don't know. You lost Kelsey and Sayamalo in the last 2 years. You got a lesser O-line and an older right tackle. You're not the same. You don't have the same O-line you did when Sanders was in the building, Xander. So he's coming to a lesser line than what Sanders had. To some extent, even to what DeAndre Swift had. An older lane, inexperienced Steen, and a guy who we think I said he's going to be a Pro Bowler. But you lose Kelsey, Sayamalo, and Lane's older, and you got to rely on Goddard being healthy. What if he's not out there? The whole right side of your offense is not the same as 22. I see dual threat. Thank you, brother.
Dual threat. Niners, you got to use the new emoji, man. You're a member on the channel. You got to use the new emoji. I added some emojis. Big Sills, I don't know if you know this, so you're like a technical dummy. But the people in the chat, they can now put a little emoji. It's got Big Sills' head in there. So they can put a little emoji of Big Sills' head in the chat. So you guys got to do that if you're a member, man. I'm trying to add more emojis for our members.
More flavor to the thing. Is that what you're trying to do?
There's even one that says dual threat.
I like that. I loved your conversation. It's funny because the guy was, you know what's funny, Xander? He was looking at all the things that I've been looking at. And when you come to it, what really sucks is this. You're trying to tell fans this. Hey, look, do you have a good team? Yes. Do you have a team that if things fall right, can be in the right position because the NFC is not what you think it is? Absolutely. Do you think the NFC is down, Seals? I do. Do you look at it where the Eagles could catch lightning in a bottle and one of those cornerbacks, Cooper DeJean or Quinyon Mitchell, turn out to be great, or even Kelly Ringo or Isaiah Rodgers? Yes. Let me tell you something. I'd rather have 5 guys back there, roll the dice. I'm hoping one of those guys comes up and, they come up snake eyes on me. You know what I'm saying? I'm looking for that, okay? Now, again, here's this one. Here's a question for you. And before I get to Nick, so look at this, and we talked about the NFC. So in the AFC, you have Mahomes, Burrow, Allen, Lamar, Stroud, Tua, Herbert. I'm not ranking them. Lawrence, Rodgers, Watson, and Wilson in Pittsburgh. I think it's harder to win the AFC than it is to win the Super Bowl. Over in the NFC.
You're not breaking any news there.
In the NFC, you got Purdy. And again, I'm not ranking. Dak, Goff, Stafford, Hurts, Mayfield, Carr, Geno, Cousins, Murray. That's the group I've got to get through versus, let me say this to you. The only people that would be ranked in the AFC quarterback rankings from the NFC would be Goff, Stafford.
Goff would be up there. What are you saying for
Goff
top 10?
Goff would be ahead of Watson.
What are you doing? Ranking them?
No, I'm just saying, if you were going to put one of the, and what quarterbacks do you think would go in the top 10 in the AFC from the NFC?
Would be in the top 10 in standings over there, or
Yeah.
just like a top 10 quarterback?
Yeah.
Well, I think Goff would. I think
Stafford?
Stafford probably would. I mean, it depends the context of the team and everything, but
I'm just talking about talented quarterback. Again,
well,
Mahomes,
I mean, look, I think
Burrow,
Goff is right there, top 12. I think Purdy's right there, top 12. I think Stafford's top 10. I think Jalen's right around top 10. You know, you got 4 quarterbacks there. I think Dak Prescott's a top 10 quarterback. Could
I
argue
might
Dak.
take Watson out and put Stafford there at 10. Dude, people are sleeping on Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to suck.
No, Aaron Rodgers is not going to suck. I'm not sleeping on Aaron Rodgers at all.
I do not believe that guy is going to suck here. All right, I want to ask you this about Nick. If you were Nick Sirianni, what would be the one thing that you would make sure you do heading into training camp so that you didn't have, and I loved what your evaluator said, it's not so much in 23 about the 1-6 slide. It's about the entire totality of the season on how up and down and how bumpy it was. He's right. You take all 17 games. How do you go from beating, like LJ said earlier, all those high-powered teams to
I'm
losing?
surprised your meathead-ass defensive tackle is like this analytics nerd so much. I really am.
No, because he made some sense with it.
Well, he did, but I got to be honest. I was like, I approached the interview with the full openness of like, win me over with your data. And I didn't leave the interview won over by the
Then you must hate the Eagle organization because that's how your organization is run. With analytics.
No.
It's not?
No, because it is, but
Oh.
that they haven't built a team. I mean, the analytics matter in the organization. You're correct. But when I see A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith and Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata and Saquon Barkley and Darius Slay, those aren't just analytics guys, Dan. Come on, those are good football players. That's what we like as fans. We like good football players. You know, the analytics guy kind of takes some of that out of it and is just like, well, you got this many yards per play on this time and blah, blah, blah. You're going to be 8 wins. And I'm like, no, not at all.
You like good football players putting big numbers up. You like wins too.
That's not what I said. Don't put words in my mouth.
Don't freaking cry to me like that, man. So what would you do if you're Nick heading into training camp?
Look, it's all
because
about.
How about this? If somebody had question marks on you going and you were walking in after your company had a down year and the stock's down, how do you walk into your company and you walk in there and you try to motivate and you tell people, hey, guess what? The sun's coming up here. Here we are. Okay, we won 11 ball games last year. We weren't very good, but still, you know how many people would die for that? What would you do if you were Nick walking into that very first team meeting when everyone's together on the 23rd?
You got to own it, like you just said. You got to own it and you got to use it. Because, look, these are all professionals. This isn't college or the old days of college when they weren't paid, where you had to, like, relate and connect with players in order to lead them. You were making millions of dollars and they weren't. It was a different game. These are professionals. In a way, they can all relate with Nick Sirianni, who could be on the hot seat. Every one of those players is on the damn hot seat, outside of a couple of them. You know how it goes, life in the NFL. You're here one day and you're gone the next. Not for long, for a reason. I would use it. I would use it as your rally call. I wouldn't hide from it. No, people aren't dumb. These players are not dumb. They know what happened last year. They know how you're viewed in the media. They know what Dan Sileo says on the National Football Show. They know it all. So don't hide from it. Embrace it, own it, and use it to your advantage and go out there and get the team to rally around you. Put on that underdog mask if that's what you need to do, or whatever it is you guys need to do to feel fired up and feel like you're ready to go. And use it. That's what I would do. From a football perspective, it's different because he's not calling the offense and he's not as much involved. But, he's not the only guy in the NFL where that's the case. There are other coaches that don't have that So it's not, my point is he's not an anomaly. There are other coaches that have.
I think Robert Saleh's got to go into that year up there in New York, and he's got to own that.
Yeah, and to be honest, he's got less to fall on. Nick Sirianni was successful. You can't take that from him. It's not like it was 8 years ago. Look, Doug Peterson is still using his success down in Jacksonville. That's why they listen to him. Now, he's a great coach. I'm just saying, when you have success in the league, it's a merit badge. And it should be, because it's hard. Robert Saleh hasn't done shit. If I'm Nick Sirianni, I'm saying we had a down year, but we're getting back to 22. We're going to go over the top this year. And people can listen to it and believe it because he did it. It's not like he didn't do it. So I think he does have, an opportunity to get these guys to rally around him. Like I said, they're all professionals. They understand the business. They're not dumb. If you try and hide from it, I think it makes a worse environment. It makes, it's not lying, but it's not being truthful. It's omitting information that, you're just making it look worse. And I think when you have grown men in the room that are making a lot of money to play a football game, people forget, this is sports, guys. This is entirely inconsequential stuff. These are guys throwing balls around the field. In a way, you have to, create that sense of urgency that might not be there after coming off that type of year. And I think he has the chance to do it. I really do.
I want to get one last comment out of you here with, I don't see the Eagles ever in a million years doing hard knocks. I would never think that Howie would ever be in a position where he would ever, neither organization would never unzip their fly like the Giants have. I watched that thing with Brian Dable and with Joe Schoen again last night, and the absolute scene that they made, and he made, because the reason they didn't bring Tyrod Taylor back is because the guy bitched and said, hey, well, that's great. Now we have the same quarterback room coming back. And the day before, they were making a bitch about how they wanted to get Jaden Daniels so bad. I mean, honestly, dude, if you're going into training camp and you're Daniel Jones, you know that organization is not 100% behind you. Yeah. I mean, I can't believe John Mara is sitting there going, I didn't want Barkley to go. I didn't want Barkley to go. You let him go. Okay. Now I get to see him twice a year. And then you're watching these two guys run the organization live on TV, making an asshole of John Mara, giving a guy $150 million because the two guys that gave it to him hate him now. I cannot believe what I'm watching. It's the worst hard knocks I've ever seen for a team.
Yeah, look, it's also tough though, because these guys' job is different than it's different than how most people would view it. Like, I don't think Joe Schoen has looked as bad as people have made him out to be. Like, he was like, everybody's giving him shit because the guy said we can't sign a $12 million running back. They suck. No smart GM in their right mind is going to sign a running back before they have an offensive line worth of shit. It's just like the Eagles signed Saquon Barkley because everything was built on the team, on the offense. So in a way, it's like it's tough.
You think it's smart throwing shade on the guy that you have to rely on to try to win?
I didn't say that. I'm just saying, when you have script writers, when you have directors and you have producers cutting and editing content, it's very easy to create captivating storylines. It's tough business. Like, you think it would look good on Howie Roseman if the cameras were rolling when he was talking about Hassan Reddick?
No,
it wouldn't. Take that and apply it to all 31 other teams in the NFL. It's an ugly business. There's going to be conversations that GMs have to have that fans will not like, that other players will not like.
So you think Howie and Jeffrey were talking shit on Jalen Hurts in the offseason, like they were talking shit on?
I'm sure they've had a conversation. Wait. Okay, so are you going to say to me that you don't think our GM and our owner had one conversation about the quarterback after what they saw last year?
I think they've had a bunch of them.
Exactly. So like if they're on, and not everybody would like everything that was said, I'm sure. So when you take that and you put it on film, it's tough. I mean,
how in do you think they are on Hurts?
Well, I think they're in because I think financially.
No. I'm talking about just again. I get the money. You're tied to him for three. I'm talking about, how do you think they look at him right now? You think they lost a little confidence in him last year?
I think Jeffrey Lurie is more sold on Jalen Hurts than Howie Roseman is.
Huh? Interesting.
I think Jalen Hurts is a Jeffrey Lurie baby. I think he loves Jalen Hurts. I think he loves what he represents. I think he loves turning a guy in the second round and the whole story of a guy who was sat in college and, elevating him to a premier quarterback in the league and paying him the money. I think Jeffrey Lurie loves that element. From a GM's perspective, I think Howie has to wonder. I mean, look, you got all these players and you're watching a guy like Brock Purdy, torch the league because he's just a different style of a quarterback. I don't believe Brock Purdy's a better player than Jalen Hurts. And to be honest, I don't think you do either. And I don't think anybody does. But his style of quarterbacking is effective when you have that type of talent around them. It would only be natural for Howie to think, damn, what if I had a guy in the sixth round who could get rid of the ball quick, come in here? What if Kenny
spread
Pickett
it around better?
Exactly. That's not Jalen's play, which is fine. But that's my point where I think Lurie's 100% on Jalen. I think he loves it, and he wants to win with Jalen. I think Howie is probably 90% there, where 10% of the time you're dreaming, but it's just daydreams. It ain't happening.
Yeah, you got to always like Xander here because Joe Schoen said that he can win playoff games with Devin Singletary the same way he can win playoff games with Saquon Barkley.
What did Saquon Barkley do for the Giants in the last 5 years?
No. That's his point. He thinks Devin Singletary is just as good as Saquon Barkley.
That's not what he said.
That's exactly what he said. He thinks I can win a playoff game.
Am I here protecting?
I can win a playoff game
defending the Giants GM. Sills, Devin Singletary for $1 million is worth more to an organization that sucks out loud than a $12 million running back is when you're trying to build a winning football team. That's not controversial to say or think.
You have a $10 million running back sitting in your huddle right now, and you think that's value.
I didn't say that.
Okay. Do you think it's value?
I think when you're the Giants and you suck.
No. You have a $10 million running back in the Eagle huddle right now. Do you think that's value?
Well, what would you rather have? I'll ask you and I'll ask everybody in the chat.
Well, the last 2 years you had two guys, $1.5 million bucks
right,
for your point on Devin Singletary, gained $1,300 and $1,200.
Let me finish. Would you rather have Saquon Barkley, who's a luxury on offense? The only reason you signed Saquon Barkley is because your offensive line is built, your wide receivers are stacked, you have a tight end, and you have a quarterback. Now, would you rather have Saquon Barkley or a star middle linebacker?
Well, I'd rather have Patrick Queen.
Me too. But they didn't go that route.
But if you're telling me, Sills, would you rather have a player that could give you the same numbers that Miles Sanders did in 22 or Saquon Barkley? I'll go like this. Well, cost efficient, like Xander said, $1.5 million for 1,300 yards. Because if I have to pay $10 million for 1,300 yards and 400 yards receiving, $10 million, that ain't quite cost effective.
It's not cost effective for anybody, but the Eagles' offense was so good.
That's what you just said. The Giants. Well, what is it cost effective in Philly then to spend?
No, I never said it was, but they had a luxury to be able to do it because their offense is already built. The Giants' offense sucks. Also, let me dispute our man Bob Brown for a second. He says, Xander, Howie's career is tied to Jalen. Lurie's is not. Bob, I don't think so. Jalen Hurts, if he fails in Philadelphia, I can almost guarantee you Howie Roseman will not be let go. Howie Roseman.
That'll be the second quarterback you gave excess of $38 million and north of that to, who bombed out on you.
Okay. Howie's gonna fall on the sword, but how are you so sure that Lurie wasn't the one who went and said, that's the guy I'm paying as our quarterback, Howie, get the deal done?
Oh, no, he's got to go. He's got to give the Pope's.
I'm not saying Howie wouldn't have given it to Jalen. I think Howie probably would have too. I don't think he would have given it to him that early. But I think Howie's career is a lot less tied to Jalen Hurts than you think.
Okay, one last one here then. What gets Howie Roseman fired?
At this point, Dan, I don't. The only thing I see in the future that could get Howie Roseman fired would be if Jeffrey Lurie gives the team to his son and his son doesn't like Howie. That's it.
So if they don't win a Super Bowl when they spent $200 almost $1 million in offense, and you don't deliver the goods,
Yeah,
and you
but
spend all this money and all the draft equity, and in the next 5 or 6 years, you don't deliver one, and you always remember you revert back to Doug and all that great coaching staff. And ever since that time, you
the
did
best
get to the
example of
22 game, no question about it. But if you don't deliver a Super Bowl in the next, counting from 22 up, in the next 5 years, so it would be a total of 7, you think he keeps his job?
if he doesn't win a Super Bowl,
Yeah.
yeah, I do.
Wow.
I think Fly Parks is correct. If you have losing seasons, multiple in a row, then Howie's we gone. But here's the thing.
Well, they're
Howie
not going to
Roseman-
do that because I don't see them that kind of team.
And that's why Howie will be retained, because Howie does so much right, even for a guy that like you that's a little bit critical. He does so much right, managing the cap, getting players, remaining relevant, doing all the little things that if somebody doesn't work out, he's going to give Howie the leash to move on, just like he did with Carson Wentz. How many head coaches has Howie been with? He was here with Andy at the end of Andy.
He was at the end
Then
of
then
Andy.
he gave it to Chip. Then Doug
Chip,
came back.
Doug.
Then Doug got fired. Then Nick came back. If Nick got fired last year, they weren't going to fire Howie.
No, you get this. And he's weathered because the owner likes him and likes his whatever. Because let me tell you, them putting him still in the organization and him going with R.C. Slocum on that European vacation that he went on while Chip was running the team, and for him to keep him employed, he must have understood that there's talent there, because you know what he is? There's no reason. The reason that Howie Roseman has the job, Xander, is not because of anything he does football-wise. It's because of the things that he does. I'm going to tell you what it is. Dude, he's nothing special in picking players. What he is he's really great at manipulating the cap, contract negotiations. He's also great at salary cap, and he's great at that. That is what his
That's not the
forte
only
is.
thing he's
He
great at.
doesn't come from a personnel background.
I'm not saying he does, but you're being disingenuous.
You got Jeff Stoutland in the room. How much do you really think he has input on a guy from Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, that's a guard?
You're being disingenuous to say that he's only.
I'm not. I don't believe he's a good evaluator of talent.
Damn, look at our offense.
Okay, let's look at it. You traded because you fucked up on Ray.
Yeah, whether they traded or drafted.
You traded for AJ Brown. I'm talking about.
No, you're wrong.
AJ Brown.
If you let me speak, I'll tell you why you're wrong.
AJ Brown is a cover of a failure.
It doesn't matter because he got the cover. The guy is produced.
You lost $65 million in equity of rookie contracts that you could have built your defense with, spending on the guy you spent $25 a year on.
Big Sills. Every GM in the NFL makes mistakes. If you view it from a lens that you should be shooting 100% from the field, yes, Howie's made a ton of mistakes and a ton of bad decisions, like that one that you can say. But when you put everything together and you look at the entire body of work, and look, Howie cannot play the football games. Howie signs the contracts. You have AJ Brown, you have Devontae Smith, you have a top 5 offensive line for the last 6 years. Your quarterback's under contract. Your tight end. You're building out the defense. He has done.
Who's the best player he's drafted?
Probably Jalen Carter.
Jalen Carter.
Probably.
Okay. Jalen Carter. And I agree with you. I think this guy has tremendous upside. But the other guys, Stoutland is in the building there. That's his call on what he
His job
does.
is not defined only on
You've had Howard Mudd and Jeff Stoutland.
Dan, his success is not defined on draft picks. That is one part of the puzzle.
That's why I said he's a cap guy. He ain't a talent guy.
Okay, so are you going to tell me that? Great job signing everybody, but they all
name me one corner he has drafted that was great.
But the talent on the field is amazing, Dan.
Name me one corner he's drafted that's been great.
Man, you're picking and choosing.
No, name me one linebacker he's drafted that's been great.
You're picking and choosing. If you look
I can seemingly pick a lot.
Okay, and you can pick a lot of good too, is my point.
Where?
What do you, Dan, are you telling me we have a Panthers offense, a Panthers roster?
No, I'm telling you.
Our roster is stacked head to toe.
Jalen Hurts was never designed to be the starter in this place. They landed on him like Kyle Shanahan landed on Brock Purdy in the last pick of the draft. Holy shit, the guy's good. Okay? Can't believe it. Wow, we got like Brady landing on Brady in the 6th round. You think that was really great talent evaluating by the Patriots? Or do you think they missed on him 5 times too? They passed on Tom Brady 5 times.
Okay.
They landed on him because he was the next player available.
Listen, you're in delusion land where you believe Howie Roseman
No, you think that guy knows what he's doing in drafting.
I think he's terrible at it. We're talking about if he's going to get fired. Howie Roseman does enough to have a good roster on the field, to manage the money, which is the most important part for Jeffrey Lurie. He manages the money, and he puts out a good team that has won the NFC East more times than any other team in the NFC East in the last 25 years.
Let me show you this too, folks. Hassan Reddick was signed because of the failure of the Derek Barnett's of the world.
Okay, would you rather just sit here and say, okay, I failed on Derek Barnett. Let me sit here and cry.
Wait, let's fail on Barnett, fail on Rager, fail on Dillard, fail on every linebacker like Dean
Dan,
or Corner.
Dan, you're cherry picking the stuff.
Cherry picking? Name me a position that he's drafted. Name me a position outside of Jeff Stoutland where you went, that guy's great. Jalen Carter, okay.
Okay, great. So let me just put it all in a vacuum. The only thing that matters that Howie Roseman does is take selections in the 1st round of the NFL draft. Who said that? That's not how he's being evaluated. So you're cherry picking that he missed on this draft pick, so he should get fired. That's not how Jeffrey Lurie
I said he's not a talent guy.
Okay, but there's a talented roster on the field. Yes or no?
Talented offense.
Okay. And that's how he's being evaluated. There's talent on the roster. They're under contract. The cap is managed properly. He has done things right, especially for a guy like Jeffrey Lurie, who doesn't give a shit about a missed draft pick here and there.
Here and there? You haven't drafted a corner in 25 years. That's decent outside of Lito Shepherd. I mean, a linebacker, the last linebacker you drafted was what? Trent Cole? I mean, we're talking about massive not performing selections. And when you have Howard Mudd and you have Jeff Stoutland, again, we'll agree to disagree on this. I think his forte.
No, because I want to run through it with you now, because now you've gone too far even on the draft picks. Let's just go back to last year. Jalen Carter, is he an impact on the team? Yes. Nolan Smith, jury's still out. I'll give you that one. Tyler Steen, a projected starter this year coming into the season. Sidney Brown was an impact player late in the year last year.
I don't know if Steen's
good. A projected starter on this team right now, or at least an impact cornerback at the back of the roster. Moro Ajomo is going to be your 3rd or 4th defensive tackle, and he's a 7th rounder. Tanner McKee is your 3rd string quarterback. That's just last year's draft.
And your last year's draft produced the 31st ranked defense.
Yeah, but they haven't had time to develop. What do you? The 2022 draft is all of a sudden going to make us the best?
City seemingly does.
I'm talking about drafting players that have an impact on our team. You're saying he doesn't draft right ever. It's wrong. Look at 23, Jalen Carter. Look at 22, Jordan Davis and Cam Jurgens. Look at 21, Devontae Smith, Landon Dickerson, Milton Williams, Kenneth Gainwell.
Than I do.
Man, you're not looking.
You're thinking more. You think more of Jordan Davis than I do.
No, I don't. I'm saying he drafted a player that is contributing to the football team. You're acting like every draft pick he takes is a catastrophic failure. It's wrong. It's not true.
There's a reason why you don't have anybody on that side of the ball that now with any kind of experience. And what was the thing my friend said? You don't win ball games with expectations. You got a ton of expectations on defense, and you're hoping. Hope's not a strategy.
The defense in the last couple of years, and they drafted a shit ton of players. It takes time for them to pan out.
We shall find out if it pans out.
I think you're not looking at. I would encourage you to go and look at the last 5 drafts. You're right, how we used to suck at drafting. We have a lot of players on this football team that Howie Roseman has drafted that have been big impacts.
Okay, take Jalen Hurts, take Jalen Carter off. Name me one defensive impact player that he's drafted in the last 3 years.
Milton Williams.
Okay, Milton Williams.
3rd round player. You only
last
have
3
20
years.
draft picks.
Last 3 years. You said 3 years. Last 3 years, Milton Williams. Who else?
We'll see if Nakobe Dean, he's going to be the starter. I don't believe in him, but you're right. I mean, I would give you him. Sidney Brown. I mean, Jalen Carter hasn't fully lived up to it yet, but he's going to be that guy. Nolan Smith. We'll see if he pans out. Keely Ringo was a 4th-round player. I mean, look, these aren't all first-round draft picks. You only have one first-rounder every year.
All I asked you was, who's an impact player in the last 3 years he's drafted?
Well, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter.
Jordan Davis is an impact player. Okay.
Jordan Davis played a lot of snaps last year, Dan.
Okay.
You can't just get rid of the snaps because
Jordan Davis is an impact player. Okay. All right. Hey, this is great. I love it. And this is what you get on Birds 365 too. This is what that right there, my friends, was one of the great. Look at Xander.
Well, no,
one of the best segments that we've ever done, my friend.
I'm pissed.
Why?
Because
what, you're trying to change me to think like you?
I'm not saying I want you to think like me, but I want you to at least contextualize and not act like the only things that matter are the things that you have a problem with. I can point out things that I like and acknowledge there are misses. Howie, this conversation started because I told you that Howie Roseman was never going to get fired. You have not swayed me off that stance one iota, not one bit. Oh. Howie Roseman ain't going anywhere. So settle in, everybody.
Whatever Big Sil says is in cement. It is truth, justice, and the Big Sil's way. Excellent job, Xander. You know what? Don't surrender. That was excellent. Dude, what are you talking about? That was one of the greatest segments I've ever done in the last 10 years.
Oh, I love it.
Phenomenal. Phenomenal, my friend. Right. You're defending your boy. You should defend your boy. Andre Dillard and Jalen Reagor live on. I'm kidding. Hey, Farzetta's going to join us at the bottom of the hour, too. Xander Krauss and John McMullen do a great job. Birds 365 in the morning. Please hit the like button. Come on, honey. You're not mad at me, are you?
No, I'm not mad at you, Big Sills. I could give a shit. I enjoy the discussion because you are an Eagles pessimist. And in a way, we need it. Wait a minute.
Didn't you call me the ultimate professional antagonizer?
Yeah, you picked the wrong career. You should have went WWE instead of football. That's what you should have done.
Thank you, Xander. I appreciate it. Catch you tomorrow, my good friend. That was absolutely sensational. Love that, man. See that right there? That's a segment. That's what I like. I like going back and forth and having conversation and dialogue. Hey, excellent stuff. Hit the like button. Mark Farzetta is going to join us at the bottom of the hour. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Big Sales National Football Show. Hit the like button. Appreciate you coming aboard. This just in. Trey Lance still sucks. He still sucks. Reports are, no. You gave up three. Hey, to Xander's point, John Lynch gave up 3 ones for Trey Lance. 3 first-round picks. And the quarterbacks that he has had that got him to the Super Bowl were Garoppolo and Brock Purdy. Hey, Niner, you're lucky you got rid of the nightmare. I had people 2 years ago, or last year, start of last year, trying to bet me that Trey Lance was going to be a good football player. And you know what I said to him? I said, that guy has no shot at being anything. He won't even make the UFL. That guy's not even an Arena Football League quarterback. He's not that good. He's not. He's the Bronny James of the NFL. You see all the guys last night talking about Phony James playing in the summer league. I think he had 12 points last night in the summer league. And Phony James, last night, man, you know, Lakers put it out there on their Twitter page. Look at Phony James. Really a good ball player. Hey, Phony James. Man, I had to turn it on. And I had to watch a little bit of Phony James. And there he was, man. Hitting air balls. Hitting a net. Had a couple shots he actually put in. But Phony James, wow. What a G League player. Holy shit. I'm rooting for a G League player. It's like rooting for an A-ball player. Hey, did you see that guy in A-ball? This guy's hitting 262. Holy shit, he hit a baseball over the center field bleachers, man. Unbelievable. He's hitting 262, Sills. He's got 3 homers, too, man. This guy can play. This guy can play. Phony James, baby. You got to love it. Xander, y'all ignored my super chat, but it's cool. Flexing. Really? Not to miss your super chat. Howie has more misses than hits. Well, that's all GMs, though. Not to kiss Xander's ass, but that's true. Dude, if you hit 30% or 28% of your draft picks, you're considered one of the better guys. Not everybody's Ozzie Newsome. You know what I mean? Not everybody can find players like that. Or Nick Casario. Okay? Read my super chat, says Flexin. I come here, I pay, you read. Yes, sir. I think they said that was Bronny's high game, including high school. Thanks, Barb. You got the history on Phony James. I leave the show. All of a sudden, Sills wakes up. What's that mean? What are you going on here? No. Xander talking smack. He sure was, wasn't he, man? That's what happens when you get an ego and you start, hosting a show, and before you know it, you're the next Angelo Cataldi, or you're the next loudmouth. And it's an ego thing. Me, I don't have one. I try to keep my humble beginnings, and I don't really go with any kind of ego, because that's not just who I am. I'm a man of the people. These big time talk show hosts like Big Bill and Xander now. Oh, Big Xander. These are the new wave guys. Yeah, I'm just I'm just a man of the people. I'm not really drenched in ego any longer. That ship has sailed. I'm more, calmer. I don't blow up as much as I used to. Only losers call winners not good. Yet their takes an NFL career was not good. Dan Sileo, to ask the Cowboys why they let you go from the NFL. Yeah, because I was asked to take a dive and I didn't. Dave Wannstedt said it on this program, and so is Jimmy. I talked myself off the Cowboys. I got hurt. I hurt my calf, and then I got meningitis and almost died. 3 months later, I was in the hospital, and last rites were read to me. Bang, bang. My calf blew out, probably one of the reasons, but they wanted me to take a dive. Dave Wannstedt and Jimmy on this program, and I didn't do it. So it's whatever here. I've learned that there's a new generation, like Xander, just getting all in my ass over here a little bit about the greatness of Howie Roseman and his drafting. Guys like Farzetta and Big Bill. And, these young guys now, see me, my humble beginnings now, and I'm more like I told you guys just a couple minutes ago. I don't really have an ego any longer. I'm more of a guy on the back nine here. These new young pups are taking over, like Farzetta. He does a great show in the morning, kicks off our broadcasting here. Xander's now giving me shit. It's crazy here. Farzetta's now a big star. Hey, by the way, before I showed Mark this earlier. Hey, rest in peace to Pat Williams. Pat was the former general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers. I've got about 17 books that he sent me until he passed away. Great friends with him. He was the senior executive and vice president responsible for bringing NBA basketball to the state of Florida. The reason that there's basketball in Miami with the Heat, and you've got Mickey Loomis down there, or the owner of Carnival down there that owns the Miami Heat, and Pat Riley's down there, is because Pat Williams brought basketball to the state of Florida. And he was the general manager of that last championship team of the Philadelphia 76ers. Really super. What a great guy he was, and I really loved him, so rest in peace. All that being said, let's bring in one of the new Turks. And one of the young Turks, the man, the myth, the Mr. Espresso. He is our friend, Mark Farzetta. How you doing, Farzetta?
I don't even have my espresso cup down here. Well, I feel like a barbarian, my friend. Don't even have espresso. Jeez Louise. How are you, buddy? Nice to see you.
That's got to be one of the first times you haven't had espresso. You drink it every day, right?
I usually have about 4 a day.
4 a day?
One before my show in the morning, one after my show, and then middle of the day, I come home, I take I do some work, and then I'll, take my siesta to pass out for an hour or two, because I'm up late doing games and stuff, man. So I need a little siesta in the middle of the day, and then I wake up and I usually have 2 more espresso. Yeah.
How in the world do you get any rest when you're drinking that much jet fuel?
I don't know if it's the same, what do you call it? Brand or mix or roast as you get in the old country, but it still works pretty well.
Got you, man. All right. Let me ask you a couple questions here. Jalen Hurts. Do you think Jalen Hurts needs his wheels and his legs to be considered an elite passer in this league? If he doesn't use his wheels, is he elite? I say he's not elite. But if he uses his wheels, he is like Lamar. Both of those guys can't win ball games without their wheels. Do you agree or disagree?
No, I agree. The thing is, whenever I think about Jalen Hurts as a mobile quarterback or as a running quarterback, I think about just an incredible quarterback when he's using all the intangible, all the strengths that he has, all his tools. Like, all right, fine. Then Patrick Mahomes can't throw sidearm anymore. Patrick Mahomes can only throw over the top. You know what I mean? Like, if you start limiting people, of course, they're not as great as they can be. And one of the greatest lies they told us with Jalen Hurts going into last year, and I was excited for it. Like, I'm not ashamed to admit it, but I took it hook, line, and sinker, friend. When Nick Sirianni said with his mouth, we're going to embrace the uniqueness of Jalen Hurts' game, I thought, that is beautiful. That is That's poetry. That is gore. I love that because that means you're not going to have him run too much. You're not going to have him throw too much. You're going to let him be him. And I thought that's the best way to put that because we're not talking about limiting his reps or limiting his running. We're talking about embracing the uniqueness of Jalen Hurts' game. And I thought, all right, there we go. And then I didn't see that. And I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was because of a crappy game plan, crappy play calling. If it was just an awful year for Jalen Hurts, if he wasn't healthy, but I didn't see that uniqueness. And don't get me wrong, the tush push and the brotherly shove and the rushing touchdown, all that's fine. But I'm talking about what really made him special. Now, to break it to the way you're relating it to his passing, and I get it. No, he can't be an elite passer without that ability because one of the reasons guys get open is because Jalen Hurts is able to buy that time behind the line of scrimmage, keep his eyes down the field most of the time, and be able to hit that open receiver. So that helps his passing game. The threat of his athleticism when it comes to him behind the line of scrimmage opens up doors for him as a passer. Now, he could still drop back and he could still sling it, but in terms of the big play, if you're a defense, you don't want to see him escaping the pocket and being able to buy time because the wide receivers he's throwing to are obviously pretty good as well. So for me, no, but if you limit any quarterback from something they do more special than somebody else, it's going to make them, obviously not as good a player.
Farzy, you're going to think that I'm absolutely off my rocker when I say this here when it comes to Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown here. Now, look, I don't want anybody to get the assessment not having good players on your football team is important. But don't you think having players like that on your football team doesn't allow you to develop your quarterback to be where he's going to be more of a progression reader? I mean, Greg Cosell came on the other day or had a soundbite the other day that we played that he says Jalen Hurts struggles at reading defenses. And he said that he struggles reading defenses. Now, all of a sudden, look at Jordan Love. You don't know where he's throwing the ball. There's no primary receiver there. Don't you think it's better in the development where you have people that don't have that one primary receiver? Because that's kind of what they're doing now in Buffalo. They took the primary receiver away. They want him to be a better quarterback because look at Kansas City. They took the primary receiver away. They took the primary receiver away in Green Bay. Look at how those quarterbacks are developing into being the quarterbacks that spread the ball around. I mean, when you have two dudes you're going to, if I'm a coordinator, I know I'm going to those two guys. There was nobody in the middle of the field after Goddard got hurt. You threw to the numbers. You became predictable. You stopped running the ball. And before you know it, and you weren't even running the ball with your quarterback. How are you developing your quarterback to become a good progression reader if you're trying to teach him from the pocket when he can't handle the blitz, third and hits on the quarterback and blitz? How does that help you when you're trying to develop that kid into something that you want him to be, and that is a pocket passer?
I'd eventually like to see him be more comfortable in the pocket and be able to climb the pocket. I think that's a huge thing that he has to
I'm not
improve
trying
upon.
to say he's better off without them. I'm just saying.
Right, yeah.
I'm just
because
saying when it comes to like developing him.
Yeah. No, I understand what you're saying, but I'm not interested in developing Jalen Hurts right now. I'm interested in the Eagles winning the Super Bowl. And when it comes to the receiving core, they have a better chance of winning the Super Bowl with that receiving core. the Jalen Hurts development right now, as far as developing goes, he needs to develop under Kellen Moore and what Kellen Moore wants him to do. And they need to be simpatico. They need to be on the same page. They need to be all good. And when it comes to the receivers that he's throwing to, it's up to Kellen Moore and Jalen Hurts to make sure that ball is distributed. I find it very, not evenly, but fairly. And one of all the things, in adding Saquon Barkley to this mix, I find it really fascinating. You have had great seasons the last 2 years in terms of the guys to spread the ball around to. 1,000-yard receivers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. They have gotten theirs over the last 2 years. This hasn't been, 1,800 yards for A.J. Brown and 700 yards for Devontae Smith. This has been amazing the way this ball has been spread out. Kenny Gainwell or DeAndre Swift, those guys getting their touch. Miles Sanders getting his touches 2 years ago.
DeAndre Swift
getting his touches, exactly. These guys getting those touches, and now taking that away and bringing in another dynamic player in Saquon Barkley, you already have that experience in spreading the football around. So that, to me, is not as much of a concern. As far as the overall development, I'll wait on it. If that means down the line, after you've already signed these guys, both wide receivers, to long-term deals, and you have Saquon Barkley for maybe 3 years here in Philadelphia, it seems like every contract really that you see is 2 years, but 3 years possibly here with Saquon Barkley, that's a great thing. I'll wait on the development. I'll wait for him to get settled in under Kellen Moore's system. I'll wait for him to become a better quarterback. But yes, there's no doubt in my mind that when people look at this, it's not just about the development of Jalen Hurts. Yes, he has things to improve upon. But for me, if he's slinging it to Brown, Smith, Barkley, dumping it off at the line of scrimmage for Saquon Barkley, and they're getting big plays out of it, that looks like pretty good development to use what's at your disposal. That down the line in his career, and we'll get there someday, down the line in his career, we'll see how much he developed. But right now, it's just about winning now. I don't want to – he's not a project. I'm not looking at him to develop as much as I am for him to improve. And you could say that's splitting hairs, which I know is a funny thing for a bald man to say, but I think that's what is most relevant to the upcoming season.
How about this one here? Tell me what you make of this trend. In 2021, Jalen Hurts ran the football for an average of 5.7 yards per play. The next year, he ran the ball for 4.9 yards per play. So let's put that in perspective. In the first 2 years the starting year of 21 and the year he played really well, he averaged basically 5 yards a carry. In one of those years, he almost averaged 6 yards a carry. That, to me, is undefensible. When you got a guy with only 6 turnovers and you got a guy that's throwing for 3,700 yards and you got a guy in there where every time he touches the ball and takes off, he's gaining 6 yards or 5 yards a carry. This past season, that number went down to 3.3 yards a carry. So he went from 6 yards a carry to 3.3 yards a carry, and that's a trend in the last 3 years. Personally, Mark, I think that's how they're coaching him. They're coaching him that way, and to me, this is where the special starts to get taken out of the soup a little bit here. Is that when you start taking that item out of it, if I'm a linebacker, when he's gaining 6 or 5 yards of play, I have to sit in there because this guy gets an open space. He's gaining 6 or 5 yards of play.
Mm-hmm.
This past season, I didn't fear that because he was either making business decisions, the Eagles didn't want him to run, either the play calling wasn't where it was, all of that, the injury, all of that played a factor. So to me, the special's getting taken, like I said, out of the soup a little bit here. Do you think you're going to see more of that trend going this way and going the way that it's going right now, where he's going to be less effective in running the ball? Because I don't think they want to coach him that way any longer. You took an element away from his game. This is the trend.
I think they realized the epic mistake they made last year. And like I said, the biggest lie that they told us was when Nick Sirianni spoke into a microphone and said the words, "Embrace the uniqueness of Jalen's game." No, you didn't. You did not do that. And the numbers you pointed out there.
The numbers speak to that.
The numbers you pointed out absolutely speak to that. The other thing is, okay, how much experience did Brian Johnson have calling plays again?
0.
Oh, none? Cool. That's fun to do that with your recently minted franchise quarterback. And, is Nick Sirianni some offensive genius when it comes to game planning? Oh, he's not? Okay, yeah. I'm not just going to blame Jalen Hurts. That's why last year when I would talk about Jalen Hurts and why there was the struggles, I would talk about this kind of quad of blame when it came to Jalen Hurts' struggles. One, obviously, Jalen Hurts himself, who take accountability, certainly. Then the other, Jeffrey Lurie in the analytics department of pass. And then also Howie Roseman in terms of the influence he had on the game, and Nick Sirianni when it came to his game plan and calling plays with, so basically the coaching staff, Brian Johnson and Nick Sirianni. If Brian Johnson is calling plays dictated from the game plan, which by him being let go and Nick Sirianni being retained and losing power over offense essentially and going to Kellen Moore, kind of shows you that the Eagles are admitting their own mistake, giving that much power to Nick Sirianni. And when I say that much power, that was, let's not forget, dwindling responsibilities for Nick Sirianni, who started out as the play caller, then wasn't, game planned, now he's not. That just shows you that they realized the mistake they made by giving that trust to Nick Sirianni. They want him to be Paulie Pom-Poms. They want him to be Nick Chirianni, as people call him on my show. And they don't want him to have really final say over anything when it comes to the actual game plan. That goes to Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore's responsibility now is to tap back into that uniqueness of Jalen Hurts' game. For me, that is going to be the defining moment of success or failure in this Eagles season. And as you and I have talked about many times before, if you're a Jalen Hurts lover, this season is for you. If you're a Jalen Hurts hater, this season is for you, because there are no excuses this season. I don't want to hear anything about the lack of being on the same page at Kellen Moore. He needs 2 years in an offense. If they didn't have the weapons that they had, I'd say, okay, yeah, I understand. He needs time to develop this offense. Oh, hey, look, you've been around the block there, Jalen Hurts. Now you got this talent around. You got the talent in the backfield. There's no excuses about why you can't put up numbers the same that you did 2 years ago. And I think the Eagles are realizing that. They have realized that. That's why they have brought in essentially 2 head coaches, one for the offense and one for the defense. That's why, and that's how I think Jalen Hurts is going to have that bounce back year, is because he's got the best team around him to have him put him in a position to be successful.
Couple last ones here for you. Okay, Mark, and I'm going to use an analogy in our business. Don't you think you have more control over your career instead of being with a partner on the air, where you have more control? That when you do partner radio, this is why I've only done it once, is that you have that guy in the building next to you, and they're going to evaluate you two together. And to me, I always had a problem with that, because if I'm going to drive the ship into an iceberg, I'm going to drive it into an iceberg. I don't want that guy driving my ship into an iceberg.
Yeah.
So my point then goes over to Nick. Can you really have a relationship as a coach where you have your entire coaching career in the hands of the offensive coordinator and his success? Can that relationship work if you have no say over your fate of how you are going to be retained or not retained? Whether what it looks like, even if they get to a wild card, say they get to a wild card, they lose, the team looks a little better. Somebody's going.
Yeah.
Because of the money you're spending on offense. You're spending $180 million on offense. Someone's going and gonna have to pay the rent for this. Can that relationship work
long term? Hell no.
How about just
not even year? One yet? No. Here's what sucks. Here's what really sucks. If you don't like Nick Sirianni to the point where you don't want him around, then that means you got to root for the Eagles to be bad, because they're not firing a head coach at 5-1 and promoting the offensive coordinator to head coach. They got to be 1-5. They got to be even 1-4. They got to have a really bad start to that. 0-5, whatever you want to call it. They have a really bad start to the season. And then you have to promote Kellen Moore to be the head coach of the football team. And that's the only way you could really have, I see, sustained success. Now, the other side of that is you still root for the Eagles. You say, I don't care about the coaching staff. I just want them to win. Well, then let's say they win. They go to a Super Bowl again, and they win or lose the Super Bowl, whatever. If they lose the Super Bowl, they're still not firing Nick Sirianni. And then you know what's going to happen after that? In that week between, or the 2 weeks, after the NFC Championship game and the Super Bowl, Kellen Moore is going to go on about a dozen head coaching interviews. He's going to get another gig, and then you're in the same vicious cycle that you were in over the last 3 seasons, really. So that, for me, is not something I'm looking forward to. Would I like just sustainability? Absolutely, I'd like that. But the only way you're really going to get that is if Kellen Moore is the one sticking around here and not Nick Sirianni. That's the only way you're not going to have another offensive coordinator, 3 offensive coordinators in 3 years. 4, excuse me. It would be 4 offensive coordinators. That is bonkers. So if I hate to put any one person, player, whatever, before the team, coach or player or front office, whatever the case may be. But that's really what you're looking at right now. If you don't want Nick Sirianni here, you got to root for a bad start to the year. And it's not just that. It's also getting bounced out of the playoffs early.
Nick Caserio told me the other day, expectations don't win you ball games. So I'll throw this at you here. You think this football team, this football roster heading into training camp is better than the 22 roster?
22 roster. No, not yet. I really got to be sold on it. I mean, you're talking about a stacked defensive line in 2022, and you certainly don't have that this year. It's the thinnest I've seen the position. You're really banking a lot on Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter for a full season. So defensively, I do see a huge drop-off. Offensively, look, I have a lot of confidence that Cam Jurgens will go in there and do everything physically strong and physically well that Jason Kelsey did. The question I have is the communication with his quarterback, and that's kind of important. So I need to see that. I need to see all that come together. Also, I haven't seen Tyler Steen play right guard for an extended period of time. Now, I would love to just have unbelievable and I do have unbelievable confidence in what Jeff Stoutland brings to the table there, but the players on the field got to play. And I haven't seen him do that at the positions for an extended period of time that they're going to be playing this season. So 2022 on paper, to use that phrase, better than 2024 going into this season. The biggest difference is obviously Saquon Barkley in terms of the plus that Saquon Barkley brings to the table there in the backfield. But Miles Sanders wasn't a slouch by any means. I know he was back of Penn State. Yards. Yeah, it's pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. Pretty damn good. But yeah, 2022, mostly the biggest gap is the defensive line. That's the biggest gap for me.
Maybe even the linebackers. I mean, think about it. 281 tackles between White
TJ Edwards. That's true. Yeah.
They have not replaced that in 2 years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty rough. Defensively is where the biggest gap is. Yeah, you're true. That's true. All right. Definitely on defense, I still would go offense or defensive line before linebackers, but I do have those. Yeah, those are really close.
Xander and I got into a heated conversation just before you came on.
That's Xander.
Now, I'm not going to pollute and lead the witness like I always do when it comes to me asking questions.
Okay.
And I'm going to do the follow-up here, so I'm not going to pollute the question.
All right.
I want you to give me your assessment of Howie Roseman when it comes to personnel decisions that he has made as general manager.
Forever or post Chip Kelly? Because
I'm asking you to fill it in.
He saw God after Chip Kelly, man. I don't know what happened, but he saw God after that. Look, we can always knock him for Justin Jefferson. And literally the Vikings laughed at you. And I'll never forget that. And that was terrible. That was horrible. They have never valued the linebacker position.
Is that Mike Zimmer laughing at him up there?
It was Mike Zimmer laughing. They were looking at I'll never forget it. They're laughing at their computers. They got him on the Zoom thing. And they're just like, oh, what? They really? No way. It was like the same reaction that Jerry Jones had when CD Lamb fell to them. They're like, what the hell's going on here? Anyway, you're asking for a grade for Howie? What was the specific question?
Yeah, okay. If you want to put it in there, and that's great. What do you think of him as a talent evaluator?
I love him. I really do. I talk about it in baseball a lot because I talk a lot of Phillies coverage with Dave Dombrowski and Howie Roseman.
That guy's Dave Dombrowski.
Dave Dombrowski has done it in 3 different places, and he's been to 5 World Series. I think he's won 3 of them, including Miami. We're Detroit and Boston as well. Yeah, in terms of going to a World Series, winning in Boston as well, going to another one in Philly. So that's the resume there for the non-baseball fans. He's really good at his job. He's a Hall of Famer.
Dave is arguably. I think he's better than Theo Epstein.
Ooh.
Now here's
he's done it in more places.
Now Epstein did it in Chicago and Boston. They're going to put statues up of him in those places.
Sure.
But I mean, this is the same guy when he got up to Detroit and they said that they wanted to trade Miguel Cabrera, and somebody goes, "Well, Miguel Cabrera is just a fat drunk," and Dave Dombrowski goes like this. Well, if that's what a fat drunk looks like, I'll take a Triple Crown hitter and I'll put him in Detroit. And that's what's the history of him going to Detroit. They gave up on a 20-year-old kid you saw knock the cover off the baseball against the Yankees in the World Series.
Yeah, and he put Roger Clemens over his knee when he was like 19.
Miguel Cabrera could easily be one of the top 5 right-hand hitters in baseball in the last 20 years.
Yes, definitely. Yeah,
Crown winner, winner of batting titles, home run titles, RBI titles, hit titles.
Yeah,
you could put him in the
easy.
He may not be Pujols, but he's right there.
When you talk about 20 years, definitely, without question, no doubt about it. How about this for Howie Roseman? Right now, the crowning achievement is obviously the deepest team probably in the history of the NFL winning a Super Bowl with Nick Foles. I mean, I think one of the only other teams that really competes with that is the 2010 Packers, who had like 18 guys on IR during the season.
So
like that's
give
insane.
Him more credit than Doug on that one.
Oh, absolutely. Because everywhere he turned, there was some semblance of talent when it came to the roster. I give Doug a hell of a lot of credit, certainly, but when it comes to constructing the overall roster, he did a pretty good job doing that. And then he was back in the Super Bowl and potentially, one awful holding call away, defensive holding from winning another Super Bowl with another head coach and another quarterback. Howie was the constant in that. That's something I can't easily forget. And the Eagles are doing something similar right now with Nick Sirianni that I find very interesting. And it's unconventional. I think we could agree, Sells, that you have a coach with basically no power. You like his personality, and that's why he's still here. You have a coach that you hired as a head coach and play caller and game planner. Quickly into that experience, he said, maybe I shouldn't be calling plays. So he took that responsibility away from himself, and that has continued to go down, as you and I have talked about. And now he's just kind of here as a figurehead, it feels like, where you don't even – you have a quarterback that can't even say what he has done well in terms of his – what was the term? Versus adaptability. Hey, Jalen, tell me about Nick Sirianni's adaptability, and what does it say about him? No, really, say something nice about your head coach. Oh, okay. He's got a good message. Like, what?
Like, what? You caught me.
Yeah, exactly. So, for me, it goes like this. It goes, Howie Roseman's the constant when it comes to the talent that he has evaluated. He is not perfect. He has had his mistakes. You can certainly talk about Justin Jefferson. You can certainly talk about the lack of value this team has seemed to always have at the linebacker position. But overall, I am blown away with Howie Roseman. Now, it was unconventional to put him in the janitor's closet for that Chip Kelly year, that final year of Chip Kelly, just as it's unconventional to have Nick Sirianni as the head coach of this team with what seems to be no real power. But they won a Super Bowl before with unconventional wisdom, and they're trying to do it again.
Let me help you out on something here.
Is this where you lead the witness?
This is where we're going to go here now.
Okay.
Okay. Can you name me one guy he's drafted in the secondary? One guy, safety, corner. If he's so talented, name me one impact player he's drafted in the last whatever years he's ever been in charge of personnel. Name me one.
Impact player. Well, he didn't draft.
Little Shepard wasn't under him.
No, Little Shepard was not under him. Neither was Sheldon, obviously. Same year. Yep. I got nothing. Secondary, that's kind of been a problem.
Name me a linebacker in the last 20 years.
Their best linebackers have been undrafted guys, which is just insane. No, you're absolutely right. There's
Name
blind
me an
spots.
Edge rusher that they've drafted in 20 years. Okay, Brandon Graham, but that was an Andy Reid guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say Josh Sweat is an impact player by any means.
He's not bad.
Yeah, but this is where the fortunate thing is that that's not the only job. Like, it's nice, but if you're able to go out there
and name me a receiver that he's drafted in the last 20 years, not named Devontae Smith.
Yeah. So that's bad, but that's not the only part of his job. And I get what you're saying.
I think he's spectacular at contracts. I think he's spectacular at finding guys deep on rosters like Gardner Johnson to bring in and help. I think he's great at other people's finished products or unfinished products that are on other rosters. And he's spectacular at the money and constructing deals. But when it comes to telling me impact players, just because you have a boatload of kids back there this year, we'll see how that shakes out of the popcorn can. Okay? We'll find out how that thing looks.
If one of those guys don't hit, that'll be really bad. I get it. In either Cooper DeJean or obviously Quinyon Mitchell. But for Howie, drafting hasn't been his strong suit when it comes to the skilled positions, really. Miles Sanders, pretty damn good. Absolutely. But when it comes to the cornerbacks and all that, they focus obviously on interior defensive linemen, and they focus on offensive linemen. And a lot of that goes to the development of Jeff Stoutland, what he's able to do with a lot of these products.
It went with Howard Mudd, too.
It went with Howard Mudd. Looking at Jordan Mailata in that case, in that regard, is great. But Howie, yes, when it comes to the draft, it has not been phenomenal at the positions that you mentioned. When it comes to filling those holes in free agency or filling those holes with trades, talk about contracts. He does a wonderful job.
Slay's an all-pro.
Yeah.
Getting Reddick, what you got out of him, I'm not debating that. For other people's unfinished products that he sees something in. Mm-hmm. I'm talking about the college personnel that you go into the draft every April and sit there and try to tell me that you're building a roster when you have 1-year contracts every other year on defense. That's not true. Mm-hmm. You have a revolving door every year on that side. Jeff Curry even said it's not sustainable, that style of being able to build a defense or continuity on that side of the ball. As you know, Mark, teams that go into seasons that make the least moves are the teams that are going to be in the building to make the conversation about being a Super Bowl contender, not making wholesale changes, changing coordinators, changing 1-year deals out. I mean, I'll give this to the Eagles and what they do. There's no question the D-line and the O-line has been a priority under Jeffrey Lurie. That was completely the reverse under Norman Brayman. Completely the opposite. And that has been a priority, and that's the thing that keeps you in the game. Let me sneak one last one in.
Sure.
How about when it comes back to quarterback and developing of quarterback? How do you think they've developed Jalen Hurts and developed Carson Wentz, in your opinion, with both players? And it almost looks like the same kind of issues. One guy struggled when it came to picking up blitzes, holding the ball too long. Gee, funny. Looks like Hurts has the same kind of issues right now. Holding on to the ball too long, not seeing blitzes. How do you think they do when it comes to developing of quarterbacks since Howie Roseman has been in charge?
Well, since the quarterback factory I know that got a lot of attention some years ago there. It's not great. I mean, look, you could look at the end result and you could say Carson Wentz was the MVP before he got hurt. You could look at the end result with Jalen Hurts the year they went to the Super Bowl. They lost the Super Bowl, but before he got hurt that year, he was the MVP.
You're right. They changed him after the Rams game.
They changed after the Rams game. Exactly. So for me, I look at it like that. When it comes to the end result, you could say, well, they drafted these young guys and they both became MVP caliber players, and then things started to taper off rather quickly, unfortunately. I think a lot of the stuff changed for Carson Wentz because of the situation, not necessarily of what the organization was doing. I would have loved for John DeFilippo to stay there with him, but if you're truly a great quarterback that can be developed, one coaching change isn't going to derail you for an entire career like it did for Carson Wentz. The real thing for him was that his backup quarterback won a Super Bowl, and then he had to come back and be the guy. And that didn't work out too well, unfortunately. Then the year after, he gets hurt again, and Nick Foles takes them back into the playoffs. Nick Foles probably ends up in the NFC Championship game, probably in the Super Bowl again if that ball doesn't go through Alshon Jeffrey's hands against the Saints in New Orleans. So Carson Wentz, that whole situation was very odd, and I don't expect to see something like that again. But for Jalen Hurts, the overall development, let's just focus on the development of Jalen Hurts as opposed to the end result for the Eagles season and the end result for how the offense looks at the end of the year. The overall development, if you're Kellen Moore, you have to have Jalen Hurts improve drastically at reading the defense. No question about that. You have to have progressions with him. And if he's not adapting to be able to go through his progressions quickly, well, then you need to turn it almost into a Nick Foles situation, get back to that RPO and go to that one read wonder type of thing. Oh, it's the same thing that Jim Harbaugh did in San Francisco all those years ago when he told Alex Smith and then Colin Kaepernick, if it ain't there on one read, bye-bye, see ya, you go, and you go get those yards. So if they have to break it down to that, fine. Is that going to help the development of Jalen Hurts? No, but it's going to help the team win football games. I hope it doesn't come to that. I don't think it will come to that. But overall, reading a defense, that's something he has to improve upon. The turnovers, he has to improve upon, of course. But I think absolutely one thing that has to be on Kellen Moore's list is situational football. Don't throw it down the field when you're up 4 points in the fourth quarter with 8 minutes to go against the Seahawks on 1st and 10, and you got a wide open running back. In this case, I believe it was Kenny Gainwell, open at the line of scrimmage. Sometimes a single is nice, Jalen. Teach him, coach him into situational football. That will make him a better quarterback. And yeah, sure, obviously, at the same time, it'll make the Eagles a better football team as well. But the development has to come with some sustained coaching message from the sidelines. And that's something that the Eagles haven't had over the last 2 seasons. Hopefully they get it back now with Kellen Moore.
Don't you agree that the identity of the front office when it comes to picking coaches, whether it's a head coach or assistant coaches, Jonathan Gannon, Shane Steichen, you get NFL jobs. Last year, you had 2 guys get blown out. They're hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why the lack of development when it comes to certain positions on the team, because how can you have 4 coordinators for a guy who's only started 3 years in the building and think you're going to be consistent? I mean, how are you developing linebackers? How are you developing coordinators? How are you developing cornerbacks? How are you developing those kind of players on that side of the ball? Hey, Jeff Stoutland's in the building since Chip Kelly. Sure. Okay. That's fantastic. He's a benchmark guy, but there's not one coach in that building that has any tenor when it comes to the amount of years outside of Sirianni. And Sirianni's not developing anybody. Think about that for a second. You take a look at Kansas City. Kansas City's had the same play caller in Patrick Mahomes' ear. You don't think that plays a factor? Matt LaFleur being in Jordan Love's ear when Brady had Josh McDaniel in his ear for a decade and a half? That plays a factor in continuity. How about Donovan McNabb and even Andy when he had him there for 10 years? I mean, you can't keep changing these guys out and think you're going to develop this guy when you have different terminology, different plays, different type of schemes, different things you're trying to do. That's not going to be productive for Hurts. It's kind of a bumpy ride in development. Don't you agree?
I mean, absolutely. That's why I talk about the vicious cycle of if all this goes well, and let's say you get back to another Super Bowl.
You're back in it again next year looking for new people.
Kellen Moore is somewhere else, and somebody else is bringing in their ideas, or you retain somebody from Kellen Moore's staff that then becomes the play caller, and then you're in the Brian Johnson situation again. It's a pretty insane thing that the Eagles are doing right now, and I still think they're going to have a really good year, but when you get to the playoffs, if you get that early exit, that's still going to mean the end of Nick Sirianni.
You think it's bumpy early, though?
I don't think it's going to be bumpy early. I think the Eagles have to come out and they have to come out on fire. There can't be any excuses when it comes to I need to get on the same page with Kellen Moore. The only real problem that I would go, okay, I could see that, is if Cam Jurgens needs a game or two to understand what it takes to have the communication with his quarterback. That's the only thing I'm really looking. Defensively speaking, there's going to be some growing pains here, but you'll be saved a little bit, I think, by the fact that Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter, I think, are almost guaranteed to have great starts to the year. That, to me, has not been the problem. The problem has been what happens at the end of the year. So I think the defense will start out well, and I think the offense will be kicking on cylinders with these weapons. And look, it sucks that it's in Brazil, and there's a lot of factors that go into that, but that can't be an excuse either. I do think the Eagles are going to have a good year, but I don't see them, with the way the coaching staff is constructed, for them to be a true Super Bowl contender by the time the playoffs roll around.
Well, breaking news, I just wanted you to realize one of the reasons that Nick was retained was because, just like with Chip, there was a Slurpee machine left behind. There's a cannoli machine. Now they're at NovaCare Center. And by the way, I hear it's chocolate chip. So just so you know, if you're ever invited by Bob Lang and his henchmen make sure you try the cannoli with the chocolate chip because they got a nice shell. Don't eat the ones on the tray. Get it right out of the machine.
Yeah.
You know, because you're a good paisan. You understand this.
They got to be warm.
The shell's the key on a cannoli.
The rigatoni's got to be warm. You know what I mean? You swipe your finger through it first.
Yeah, right. You
I
can't
know.
have that day-old cannoli, man. The day-old cannoli, it sounds like an egg roll. There's
nothing better when they hand you the box, the pastry box, right? And you take it and it's warm. That's so beautiful.
You got those Italian cookies or you got pizza free. You got any of that in there. You just open the box and you smell and you're like, the lemon cookies, like that kind of stuff. Oh, my God. Then you look over and you go, you know what? Since I'm here at the deli, can you get me a little bit of prosciutto?
Yeah.
I got to take the prosciutto home with me, man.
You don't want to be rude.
Prosciutto like you would believe. She loves prosciutto, man.
I've been binging, and the All-Star break, I always binge something, and it's like 2 shows. I've been watching like Stanley Tucci in Italy, man. That's like the greatest thing. And the show Alone on the History Channel about like outdoor survival. It's awesome. But Stanley Tucci went to Parma, and they were making the prosciutto and all that. Oh my God, Madonna me, it was amazing.
So you watched Pajama Night the other night, huh?
Pajama Night? What?
Pajama Night, the All-Star game. It was like Pajama Night. It was like Pajama Night at the All-Star game with the baseball guys. Why don't you just go back to your hometown gear? Where's the hometown gear? The hometown gear is the old school way of doing it.
I do like that Bryce Harper was championing that cause, but I will say I thought the uniforms this year were pretty awesome.
Oh my God, you love the ruse.
This year I like
the ruse. You match the top and the bottom, and you got the kid and everybody.
I like the uniforms, but I wouldn't mind going back to wearing your team's uniform.
Absolutely, my friend. Absolutely great, folks. Don't forget to catch him. He kicks off our broadcasting here on JAKIB Sports each and every single morning. Buona fortuna to you, my friend. I appreciate you doing this. Thank you, my friend.
Absolutely. Boca de Lupa. See you, buddy.
You got it. That is our friend, Mark Farzetta. Please hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES, Eagles.
How did that kid get on the roof? That should be a t-shirt. You don't really have to say anything more. You leave it there. How does the kid get on the roof? He's right there. There he is. Hey. There he is. Anybody? Hey. Hey, Twiz thinks the guy who got killed, the fireman, is staged. The fireman who got his head blown off is staged. Really? Twiz, you might want that one back, son. You might want that one back. You know? You might want that one back. And the other guy, the other two fighting for their lives, you might want that back. Oh, that's what you're saying. I'm not going there. Man, I sure hope that's not what that turns out to be, man. I got you, Twiz. Twiz is like, no, that's not what I meant, dog. Man, because it just doesn't make sense. That is one of the most, I'll tell you what, if you want to have conversations about the Kennedy assassination, and now you want to have a conversation about the Trump assassination attempt, you easily could go 10 hours on that. Well, I don't want to put my agents up there because it was a sloped roof. But that's why he chose it. Because it's difficult. Who is that person? I mean, do you know the problems that our country would have faced if that guy got his head blown off? Holy cow. Because they would have blamed everybody for it. Most notably, the guy in the White House now. It's just, hey, I hope it's just this. Hey, man, we made massive mistakes. Just like we did with Kennedy. Open car. You know what they did with Kennedy's assassination? They posted the president's route in the Dallas Morning News, and they had him in an open car in Texas where there were threats against his life already. Hey, it looks like we're picking up things, and we're still learning from our failures in history. Congratulations to you. All right. Hey, it just don't make sense, man. I'm with you guys. Oof. Security breach to the max. Absolutely. All right. I cannot wait for the college football season this year. Not wait. I can't wait to see how nil affects it. Players getting paid. How about all these coaches like Dabo Swinney complaining about players getting money? Well, maybe this player will take off, a semifinal game because he wants to get himself prepared for the NFL draft. So, hey, Dabo, you coaches like Brian Kelly will leave kids in a lurch in a New York second so that you could take a better gig for $100 million at LSU over Notre Dame. I don't have one problem with what the kids are doing. It actually keeps programs honest now. You can't just tell me the love of the game because now I'm getting paid for it. Man, I'd love to be in today's landscape and getting paid like today's kids. We had to do things under the table. Hey, did I get paid? Absolutely. Did I make money as a college student at the University of Miami? Yeah. I've never not said that. Absolutely. How much, Sills? About 50 grand in cash every year. That's in 1986, 85. That went on. Yeah, probably like that. I didn't have to pay for my apartment. I didn't have to pay for food. Even when I went out, I got these really great cards from certain restaurants. There's some of them are still up, so I'm not going to bark them out. But I used to get, hey, one free meal, no alcohol. We couldn't get alcohol. The owners didn't want any of that shit, so they would never get alcohol. We couldn't get alcohol at those places. Because if you tried to get alcohol, Jimmy would get a call and go, you can't eat there anymore. They don't want you coming in. They would bar you from going back in there. Now these guys, hey, you know what NIL means? Now it's legal. Yeah, now it's legal. Danny, did you see that Williams tried to get non-franchise tag language put in his contract before he played down in the NFL? I like it. Barb, I found out one of the reasons why he was holding out. It was over payment dates. Also, what could end some of the guaranteed money? And here's a big thing. Say he's cut like Zach Wilson was. You have to have language in your contract. If you get Zach Wilson got a signing bonus from the Jets, right? Well, when he signed, oh no, he got traded. So I can't use him as an excuse or an example. But if you're a guy that's still under a contract, your rookie contract, and you get fired, say like Justin Fields, okay? And you're owed money from Chicago. What Chicago would want is they would offset what you're going to get paid by the Steelers. Whereas the player's like, no, I signed a contract with you, and you're to give me my full guaranteed contract. What owners want to do is this. If you end up sucking badly and they end up getting rid of you and you sign with the Steelers and they're still owed money left on a contract, they want you to offset that with your new job. See, I always believe that new job, the Steeler job, has nothing to do with the Bear contract that you signed. You drafted him. You paid him. You owe him. Pay him. Whether he's good or not, you drafted him. You owe the money. You don't get a hall pass because he didn't work out there. But what they do is they try to put in the language. They try to put in the language that the next team has to pick up the money. And that's what he was fighting against, is offsetting the language. Yeah, Twiz. But the signing bonus too, Twiz. Say you trade, like Zach Wilson, they traded him, right? Well, the Jets owe that money. But the Jets are now going to say that the Broncos have to pick up some of that guaranteed money that has been given to him because now he's a member. I don't know how that language works like that. I would think that Denver's not on the hook for that, but possibly just the last year of that contract. I would think Denver's only on the hook for the final guaranteed money and a percentage of that. See, the Jets get off the hook there with that, though. And now it goes over to the Broncos. The Broncos have to pick that back-end deal up. You trade him in his contract. Well, that means the Broncos have to pick up the final year. And if they pick up the fifth-year option because he's the first rounder, that's $20 million, which I don't believe they will anyway. Hey, by the way, is James Jones in here? Our resident, Josh Allen. Josh Rosen. That's exactly right, senor. Is our friend James Jones in here? Boy, I'm hearing a lot of great things coming out of Washington. And with the group there with Magic Johnson and Josh Harris and everybody and what they're doing, there's a lot of great excitement going on in Washington. I think they're going to have a really good year. I mean, I'm picking them to be right there for the NFC East championship. I really am. I think they have a great opportunity. It's all going to come down to Jaden Daniels. Does Jaden Daniels have to play like C.J. Stroud for them to go into the direction where they could think that they could be possibly a playoff football team? I don't know. But they sure have a lot of talent. I think the Cowboys are the third best team in that division, and I think the Giants are absolutely the worst team in that division. But I do believe that Washington is going to be a tougher game than it's been for the Eagles this coming season. The Washington's got a lot of talent on both sides of the ball. They got a pretty good-looking roster. Their defense is nothing to sleep home. Hey, by the way, their linebackers are superior to you. Now, getting home will be the issue. Getting home and getting pressure on the quarterback, just like in Philly, is going to be the issue. But they got some pretty good-looking linebackers in Washington. And plus, you got Dan Quinn as your coordinator. I mean, Dan Quinn was up in Seattle when they won the Super Bowl, and he was down also in Atlanta when they went to a Super Bowl. So he's got Super Bowl experience. If Washington hits on Jaden Daniels, they're going to be a tough team. Twiz, absolutely correct. Because they can run the ball. Their O-line's a little bit suspect. But, yeah. All right, let's do this. Are you betting against Kansas City winning a three-peat? Kansas City winning a three-peat. Can they do it? Field versus the Chiefs. Yes, I am. Too hard to do. Damn, Wayne. That's Wayne. The only team since 1965 to do this is the Packers of 65, 66, 67 when they won 3 NFL championships in a row. Now, obviously in the Super Bowl era, no one's done that. But the last team to win 3 professional championships, NFL championships, have been the Green Bay Packers. They won the 65 last NFL championship, 66 Super Bowl 1, and 67 Super Bowl 2. It's the last team to do it. Then the next year, get this, they were so out of gas, the Packers didn't have a 500 year the next year. Well, Lombardi was gone. He had retired. Then the following year, he came back and coached the Washington Redskins. Why is it hard for the Chiefs to go back and do this? Law of averages? Man, that's not a strategy. Sills, you're saying that the Chiefs can't do it because why? I got to come up with an excuse. Why can't they do it? I can't come up with an excuse. Hey, Busy brings something great up. Kansas City games are boring. Hey, Busy, so were the Patriot games. You think there's a coincidence? That's a good one, Twiz. Twiz, that's a fantastic take. Playing deep into the playoffs puts a lot of wear and tear on your team's health. Let's take a look at that for a minute. To what Twiz just said. Let's just go to last 3 years. Shit, let's go to last 4 because they lost that Super Bowl, right? Have they been to 3 straight Super Bowls already? They've been to 2 straight, right? 2 straight. And they lost that one to Brady. So 3 and 4 years they've been to, right? Let's just go 3 and 4 years. So the last 4 years, they've played 3-0. Then the following year, they went 4-0. Then the next year, they went 4-0. That's 3-1. Then this last year, they went 4-0. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's 16 ball games that they've played. Think about this. To Twiz's point, in the last 4 games, or the last 4 years, they played 16 additional games. A full season almost. Could that be something to wear them out? Absolutely. Absolutely. You play 16 extra ball games? How would you like to be a team that went home? Look at Baltimore. They didn't make the playoffs 2 years ago. They made the playoffs last year. Their season was over at the end of the year. They didn't make the playoffs. Oh, no, they did. Tyler Huntley got them there. They got beat in the wild card game. They did make it. But look at him. Look how far. Look at how much that wears and tears on you. That's incredible. Conditioning, being prepared, not over preparing. You've got to have so much shit go right. Health, depth, coaching. Man, everything has been perfect for them for 5 years. They've been to 4 Super Bowls in 5 years. And they played an additional 16 ball games. Man. And to bet against Mahomes and Steve Spagnuolo and Andy Reid. I don't know. Can Burrow do it? Yes. Can Allen do it? I don't know. Can Lamar do it? Maybe. Can Hurts do it? Maybe. I'll tell you this. You get Hurts in a game with anybody, he gives you a shot. That's why he makes $50 million. But Hurts for 17 ball games is not going to be the guy you're going to look at when it comes to prototype and the criteria on Super Bowl quarterbacks. That's not. But in a game, like if I had could Hurts beat him in a Super Bowl? Yeah. Could Lamar? Yeah. Can Allen? I don't know. I think he's awful talented. I want to see him without some weapons up there. See, his situation's different than Jalen's. Jalen can't win with Buffalo's talent. He could never do that. Like you couldn't change positions and put Jalen Hurts in Buffalo. They wouldn't win games. They'd be under 500. You put Jalen in a game with that talent that he has, he can win. That's a great one, Wayne. Can CJ Stroud? I don't know. I don't know. Can Tua? I don't think so. Here, let me look at that list. Seals, you think Burrow can beat Mahomes? I do. One game, AFC Championship game. Seals, do you think Allen can beat Mahomes? I don't think so. You think Lamar can? Maybe. You think Stroud can? I want to see him do it again. I don't know. Herbert. Hey, man, you got a great play calling head coach. And I don't want to hear any bullshit anymore. You're an exceptionally talented kid. You're arguably the best arm in pro football. Justin Herbert might have the best arm next to Matthew Stafford in the league. But you got to win, man. Having the tools is one thing. Applying them is another. This guy's got to win. He's got to put it together here, man. Now you have a coach. Then someone's going to go, well, they got rid of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I don't give a shit. There's no excuses in the league when you're making that kind of money, man. Can Trevor Lawrence? I don't think so yet. Can Rodgers? Yeah. Watson? Wilson? I don't think so. I think his best days are past him. Can Purdy? Experience last year in the game. Can he get back to that? Apply what he learned. Plus, he's got Kyle. Probably. Can Dak? No way. Dude, for Dak Prescott to change the narrative on his career would have to be who changed the narrative on their career in the NFL at a quarterback position once they won it. Or let's just think about an athlete who changed the narrative about winning the big one. Remember when LeBron won the championship in Miami? That was a big elephant off his back that he won that title. I'm trying to think of a quarterback that won a Super Bowl. Peyton Manning? Elway. Great one, Wayne. John Elway winning it was a big one. Stafford. That was a big one. Absolutely. Absolutely. Steve Young. Mayfield can't. Carr can't. Geno can't. Cousins can't. Murray can't. Boy, Chiefs versus the field. The field don't look that hot unless it's the AFC. If he can get out of the AFC, he'll win the Super Bowl again. He's got to get out of the AFC. So in my opinion, for them to be a three-peat, they've got to win home field. If they win home field advantage, he wins his third straight. Where would you put that next to Brady when you're contemplating them two and talking about those two as being the two best players in the history of that position? Would that be greater than the 7 Super Bowls if he wins his fourth and third in a row? Wow. I would name Holmes the best quarterback that's ever played. I can name Tiger the best golfer that's ever played, and he doesn't have as many major championships as Jack. When I look at Tiger to me is the greatest player of all time. 100 wins, all the majors. I get Jack finished second 19 times in those same majors, 18 wins. I get it. But when I look at Tiger and the amateur victories and all that, Woods is the greatest player of all time in my book. But if Mahomes wins his fourth Super Bowl, say he gets his fourth MVP award, I mean, I'm talking about his fourth Super Bowl MVP. I think he's got 3 now. So he got 4 Super Bowl MVPs, 4 wins, 3 in a row. How do you put that in the room where you go, guy's the best player that's ever played? He's the best player that has ever played if he wins that third. What would that mean for Andy if he wins that third in a row? Holy shit. Would Andy Reid become the greatest coach in pro football history? Do you know over the next couple of years until the year 2027, I think it is, if Andy Reid averages 12 or 13 wins a year, he'll pass Shula as the most winningest coach in pro football history. And in that same time frame, he's at 21 wins now. He's 13 behind Belichick with postseason wins. So if he puts those wins together and they win and continue to win Super Bowls, Andy Reid will pass Bill Belichick as the all-time winningest head football coach in postseason play. And also in regular season, he'll own both records As a Philadelphia fan, how do you look at that? That the greatest coach in the history of pro football was in your building. And I get it. I'm not revising history here. The whole thing with his kids and his kid at the end, 4 wins at the end of the year. The Eagles thought it was in the best interest to move off him. They probably thought he ran out of gas. All those years of going to 5 conference championship games. Okay, 14 years, as Barb said, no Super Bowl wins. Barb, was there any talk of ever retaining him? Or was it just the Eagles wanted to part ways and they felt it was just time to part ways with him? And who made that decision? Jeffrey Lurie? He was the guy that made that decision to part ways. By the way, he and Andy have a great relationship to this day. I'm not putting shade on it. I'm just talking about it because I'm trying to learn a little bit here as well. Media's opinion was to get him out. Really? Huh? So the media were spearheading firing Andy Reid. Interesting. Hey, Angelo hates him. I went back and watched every Jalen Hurts game as a starter. Only way we win is if we put the RPO back in, rollouts and extended plays, fit Jalen Hurts. There's no question about that, disciple. They don't have it in, they don't win. Because he's not good enough. As a pocket passer, I don't believe it. Just like the media will say to get rid of Jalen Hurts if he does not win a Super Bowl this year or does not run. Hey, Senor, you know what I've said to you? Have I ever said that you should move off of Jalen Hurts? I'm asking you to help him more. Hey, just because I don't like the style, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't coach what you gave the money to or you're building the team around. He's your guy. You got to do everything possible to make that guy work. I have never said get rid of him. You've never heard me say trade him. You can't really anyway. I looked into it. So you're there with him. You got to make it work. Okay? The way what's my biggest problem, I told you, that I have is how they're trying to make it work. Here. Like I said, you go back to what they're doing now this year, and I added it up. I wrote it down here. You've had a total of 13 practices so far. 13 total practices. You're going to have, from what I'm understanding, according to Clint Hurt, you're going to have 9 padded practices. And you're going to have 6 more, 15. So over the next month, you're going to have 15 practices. And 6 to 9 of them are going to be full gear. You would have 28 practices this offseason to get ready for September 6th. You think that's enough with new coordinators, new terminology, and how Jalen Hurts says 95% new offense to go into a football game and you think they're going to be ready? You know, Mark Farzetta thinks there's not going to be any bumps and bruises in this thing. If they had not changed him and they had hired the Kingsburys or an RPO guy, I'd feel more comfortable. Be like, he'll pick it up. He'll pick it up. And Xander and I's conversation about the defense, he and I are in completely different attitudes with that defense. Okay? I'm not saying he doesn't think there's issues over there, too. I don't want you to think that. I absolutely don't. But to me, again, impact football players help you win ball games like TJ Watts and guys like that. And they don't have an impact player over there outside of that tackle. There's no impact player there. You're projecting that Huff will be. Well, again, you're projecting that. You better hope so. You better hope he even equals Hassan Reddick. Will Gardner Johnson be the same guy he was 2 years ago? Again, projections. There's nothing that you look at over there on that side of the ball and go, you have the advantage, as I said yesterday, going into a ball game where you feel comfortable. Well, Sills, we drafted a bunch of guys. You know, when someone tells me that, that's not comforting. Now, just because your GM addressed it, you can hire people all the time. If you hire the wrong guy, does it matter? Well, I addressed that we had a bad market manager. We hired a new guy. You get the same result? Yeah. Well, shit. What are we doing here? You getting kudos for addressing the needs? No, that's his gig. He doesn't coach him. That's fair, but then you go back into the process of hiring the coaches to develop them. That's also on his gig. See, Howie doesn't have a checks and balances because everything runs through him. Like Xander said, well, Sills, he addressed it. Okay, he did. Okay, who's coaching those guys to develop them? Guys Howie drafted or the guys Howie hired. Okay, so Howie hired him. Well, to be fair, this year, it looks like these are Vic's guys. And these have the fingerprints of Vic Fangio all over it. Is that gonna make for a faster transition for some of these guys being handpicked by Vic? Yeah, it is. Okay. Who gives a fuck what ESPN thinks, LJ? LJ trying to tell me that ESPN picked him number 3. Who gives a shit? I'm talking about results, dog. I'm talking about results. I'm talking about putting defenses and offense. I'm drafting guys and impact football players. Name me one, LJ. Jalen Carter. In the last 3 years, you got one dude that you could signal and circle and go, that guy's a good-looking football player. The rest of them are nobodies. They're nobodies. And they're all covered by free agents. Once again, I'll say it again. He does a great job of this. Trading for Slay, excellent. Getting the most out of Reddick. These are unfinished or NFL people that have had success in the league. The people that he misses on are the people that have had no success in the league. Finding Gardner Johnson, great. One of the strokes that he does well. Hey, the Hargrave sign, great. He was raised in Pittsburgh or the Steelers. Right. Cherry picking, name me one. You could go 15 freaking years. And 1-year deals. I'm talking defense, Swansky. The Barkley sign. We'll see. Busy goes, Nolan Smith, Nakobe Dean will be considered busts after this year. I sure hope not. For those players' sakes. I sure hope not. Seals WNBA just signed a $2.28 billion deal with ESPN, Amazon, and NBC, which quadruples the league's revenue. Isn't that great? All the salaries now go up for all the players in the league. I think that's fantastic. I think player salaries all go up. Hey, Tony, it's the honest truth, Sills. Now wait. To what Xander said, Sills, You agree he does everything unconventional over there. Yeah. That's why every 3 years you'll have a 4-win year. And every 4 years you'll have a Super Bowl team. That's how it's going to go. That's your trends. You're really not. But I agree with Xander. You're never going to have 2 years in a row shitty ball. That's not going to go down like that. You know why? He's smart. He keeps himself on them 1 year deals. Just change the damn roster around every year. It's fail safe. It gives you an opportunity that if you have a really crappy year, hey, by the way, how about this one too? No one wants to do this. What? I forgot. Howie Roseman wasn't responsible for the 4-win season either? Or was that just Doug? You give the guy all the credit for the 17 Super Bowl, and you give Doug all the blame for the 4-win season. What about his ass? It's like the Hurts thing. You guys protect Hurts and Howie like these guys are like Santa Claus. Okay, here. Let me do something here because, once again, LJ can't listen. Under Howie on defense, this is not cherry picking. There has not been a safety or corner he has drafted in the last 15 years. That's any kind of player where you have impact. No one. And how he's done it is, like Xander said, unconditional or unconventional. Go get Slay. Sign Bradbury. Trade for Gardner Johnson. That's not draft picking. That's doing what I said he does. He finds guys on other rosters that people have put on rosters. Linebackers, 0 in the last 15 years. 0. How can it be cherry picking when I'm looking at the side of the ball that's going to dictate your future this year and how well you play? And you're going, Milton Williams is pretty good. Great. He's a backup. Good player. Like him a lot. He's a backup. Your edge rushers, 15 years. Name me one. You signed Reddick. Give me another one. No, LJ. The entire defense they miss on. Drafting. Dude, how can 11 players be cherry picking? NFL no prorate, splitting guaranteed money. This is why the Eagles stuck with Bradbury, guaranteed $12 million. Cut him and collected 12 on the couch. Well, it would only be 4 against the Eagle cap. Okay? But busy. Xander's right too. Sills, okay, I'm not disputing that. But what he does do is he goes out and does what? Okay? He makes the trade, gets the guy on the bottom of the roster, like a Gardner Johnson. All of that. Okay? And by the way, Fletcher was not under him. That's an Andy Reid guy. Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter are under him. And again, I'm not as high on Jordan Davis yet. I thought Jordan Davis was great the first 5 games of the year last year. I really did. It's a bad trend, and they like to work off trends. Tony, because they're analytics guys. Okay? Because it's analytics guys. Okay? Absolutely. Should be that. All right. Guys, do me a favor. Please hit the like button. Keep it here, National Football Show.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
Heading down the shore. Have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood days.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
They're carving them up and good play calling along the way. First and goal at the 6.
On the field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
Win and save this baseball season from Colony Pools and Power Washing, a local company serving Delaware, Delco, and Chester County since 1970. Are you tired of looking at your green house? Is your roof, siding, deck stained green from algae and mold? Let the experts pressure wash your home and take the pressure off of you. Win with Colony Pools and Power Washing. Call them now at 302-762-2250. That's 302-762-2250.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Big Sales National Football Show. Please do me a favor and hit the like button. We so appreciate you guys coming in here each and every single day. And LJ, thank you for staying here 4 hours with us. Thank you, C24, for being here for 4 hours. Senor, thank you for being here for 4 hours. I can't thank you guys enough for being here as long as you are each and every single day. Thank you, Prince, for being here for 4 hours. Twiz, thank you for being here for 4 hours. I can't thank you enough. Even with some of the things that don't make sense to your actions. You post things that don't make sense to your actions. I love you anyway. And I mean that, senor. Thank you. It means a lot to all of us here that you would come here. Like C24 spending 24 hours here today. Or LJ spending 4 hours. Thank you. From the bottom of our hearts, we thank you. All right. So Terrell Owens now bringing old history up again and moaning. Thanks for making working from home enjoyable. Senor, thank you for picking us every day and finding us. You and I'm not here for 4 hours. What are you talking about? Oh, I'm sorry. It just seems it. Hey, Busy, thank you. And big sales we trust. Hey, dude, if I don't thank you guys enough and I get on your shit sometimes, don't get butthurt over it. You're supposed to have backbones in here. Unlike some of the people that listen to Philadelphia Sports Talk nowadays, it's unbecoming of a Philadelphia Sports Talk host or a Philadelphia Sports Talk listener to act like a wuss. It's unbecoming. It's not what I expect. Don't hurt my image. Okay? I do. Don't hurt the image. You crazy? Yeah. Yeah. Holy cow. Trump tonight at the RNC. Dude, Trump hasn't spoken at the RNC, but he showed up every day. And every day he shows up, the Democrats are trying to blow out Joe Biden from the White House. Even Adam Schiff. And the rest of these guys are trying to blow that guy out. And Trump hasn't said a word. Dude, I don't know what this thing's going to look like. Get your popcorn and beer ready. This is going to be crazy by November. Eagles have $25.8 million in cap room, getting another $8 million to sit Bradbury on the couch. Is that a good move? Dude, cut him. It's $4 million. I'm not going to send him home. Cut him. If you cut him, it's 4.3. Instead of just letting him have his contract. Why would you let him have the $12 million when you can whack him? Whack that guy. Cut his ass. Yeah, so let me finish this with T.O. T.O. says he called the Buccaneers up and wanted to play at 48 years old with Tom Brady. And Tom Brady disrespected him, he said, by not returning his call. Why would Tom Brady return your call? Tom Brady not returning your call is all you need to know. And so he goes public saying Brady didn't respect me. Well, okay. Not everybody respects everybody. Not everybody respects everyone. Okay? It happens. Get over yourself, T.O. You don't deserve the respect of everybody just because you're a Hall of Fame player. You deserve the respect of people by the way you conduct yourself and the way you treat others, not because of who you are. That guy's still 25 years old. Terrell Owens thinks he's still a ball player. Those days are gone, dude. Those days are gone. I mean, right? Member up and like the stream for Big Sills Nation. Rob, that's really cool. Thank you very much. Tell you what, when football season gets kicked up here, folks, I can't wait. We're down here on the runway, and we're really looking forward to this coming season. I'll tell you this. The Eagles are going to be one of the most inspiring teams to watch. Okay? They really are. I cannot wait to see how this thing plays out this season. Sills, we're on the runway. Absolutely, you're on the runway, man. And by the way, one thing that I will say, now that you look back at the NFC, you do have to say this. Hey, Sills, do you think that climb to the NFC top is going to be as hard as it is? Like you said, the top and the climb to the AFC? No. So maybe not a lot of things have to go right for the Eagles to get into that one game to play for the Super Bowl. Their road is easier to get to the Super Bowl than the Chiefs. By far. All right. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Xander. Thank all of you. Please hit the like button. Guys, I can't thank you enough. Really. 2 to 6 tomorrow, and we shall see you on the flip side.